Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Crime and Sports early and ad-free right now. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
In the depths of an Atlanta forest, a clash between activists and authorities ends in tragedy. I'm Matthew Scher, and on my new podcast, We Came to the Forest, we expose the hidden truths behind a shootout that left one activist dead and countless lives forever changed. Binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest ad-free on Wondery Plus.
Hello and welcome to Crime and Sports.
Yay!
Yay indeed, Jimmy. Yay indeed. My name is James Petrogallo. I'm here with my co-host.
I am Jimmy Wissman.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us today. We are excited because we have a weird one today. Hope you enjoyed the last. It's been just a few months of just wild roller coaster. Last week was Michael Dokes, and that was a crazy ass story that. Well, I don't even think I didn't know that existed 2 months ago, and then we found it, and there it is, so that's good. But this week, we have a wild story. We're going to go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
We got an old-timey 40s kind of story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, all sorts of tales of prison and gangsters. This is a crazy-ass story. One of the wildest stories, honestly, one of the craziest people we've ever done. I had no idea, again, that this existed, but now we do, and it's only good for us. It's only going to be good for us. So thank you guys so much for joining us. If you haven't done it, if you want to help the show, please get on Apple Podcasts, that purple icon, give us 5 stars. Doesn't matter what you say. Say you're following instructions, following directions. Say, I like Italian combo sandwiches. I will be happy with that. That's fine. Do whatever you want, but it helps the show. Head over to shutupandgivememurder.com right now. All sorts of new merchandise is up as we speak.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there's all tickets to live shows that are going to happen next year.
I can't wait.
Speaking of that, we are going to do a little something special next month. We'll announce the date for you soon. It's going to be late October, right around Halloween. Right before Halloween. We are going to do a live virtual show of the Violent Felon edition of the Prisoner Dating Game.
Hell yeah.
So you can see all the people and do all of this and watch Jimmy's face as he finds out that he picked a pedophile.
Real Halloween monsters.
It will be hilarious. You want monsters? We got them. All horrible people, all violent murderers and rapists and terrible people, and Jimmy's going to pick one. So it'll be really good. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll give you more information on that as it comes. If you want to help the show out even more and help yourself out as well, you can be a producer of the show very easily, as a matter of fact. What do you get for that? Well, Jimmy will mispronounce your name. That's going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Definitely.
Whether he likes it or not. This is the thing. He's not doing a bit. He's trying as hard as he can. If you could see the frustration on his face.
It's the best I got.
I don't know if you'd laugh as hard. You might just go, "Oh, that's a grown man trying to read." That's kind of
funny
sad.
or sad?
That's kind of sad. I feel a little depressed about that. But yes, he's going to do that in a wonderful fashion. And in addition to that, you are going to get access to all sorts of bonus material, tons of stuff. Last week we did personal ads and classifieds, and they were that was one of our funniest things that we've ever done. So
I love it.
That would be worth the Patreon right there, honestly, that episode, because it was an hour and 15 minutes of...
It's a very underutilized resource for figuring out things about society.
You can see how it progresses, and that's what we did. And Small Town Murder, all sorts of good stuff there. We did the white trash defense in full detail last week, and next week we're going to have more stuff for you, so you can find all of that. Patreon.com/crime and sports. Anybody at the $5 or above level is going to get all the access to everything like that you want. And if you just want to be a nice person, have good karma, and say, hey, here you go, and get your name mispronounced by Jimmy, that'll happen also. You can go over to PayPal, use our email address, crimeandsports@gmail.com, to make a one-time donation. And with that said, let's get into this,
I
man.
can't wait.
Let's do it. We have, like I said, back in time, a very weird one with Ralph Richard Schwamb.
Oh.
Blackie is his name. He's very white.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Blackie Schwamb.
Those are the most lunatic men on earth. A white guy named Blackie. I've met two.
Yeah.
Both of them are terrible men.
Old guys. Yeah, it's an old-timey thing. I remember, like, old uncles being like, yeah, my friend Blackie. And I'm like, okay. Then I've met the guy, and I know he's very white. So I'm like, what are you talking about, Blackie? I don't know if that's, like, a thing, like, you call a tall guy shorty or a bald guy curly,
I don't know. I never asked, because I never wanted to talk to him very long, how the nicknames happened. They were just really bad guys.
Yeah, I would think there would
really
be like a real blonde guy called Blackie or something back in the 20s. I don't know. No, obviously not now.
Very gray.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
Damn it, it's too late. So Blackie Schwamb is his name here. He's born August 6th, 1926.
Oh, my.
Which is wild. Which reminds me, by the way, today is Italian Grandma's 92nd birthday.
Oh.
So happy birthday, Italian Grandma, who was apparently born 2 years after this guy. And she's still going.
So we got...
And surprise, he's not. We'll find out how he met his demise, but she's outlived this man. So good for her.
Yeah.
He's from Lancaster, California, originally. He's a Western guy, a Western California guy, L.A. guy, which is, again, back in the day, you don't even think of L.A. existing.
Yeah.
Like it did, obviously, but it's one of those things where you think of LA like it just happened.
Right.
Basically, like from maybe the 60s on and not before. But LA existed before
Historically, it's not necessarily there's not a lot to it. It's pretty new.
It's new, and that's the thing. Yeah, that right away is a strange thing to think of LA, and there's a couple of things we'll talk about, like when Hollywood and Vine was orange groves.
Yeah.
This is when he was around.
Oh.
When, things that you consider now that are just ingrained. Hollywood did not even exist yet. Hollywood Boulevard wasn't paved.
What, really?
Yeah, like that's what we're talking about. LA was like an outpost, man.
It had to be a dirt road at some point.
Yeah, it was an outpost back then. It was just like, hey, some crazy people live out there on the West Coast, like way the hell off of everything.
People forget Wyatt Earp died there. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It's crazy, but it was happening. And a lot of this book, I have to say, because there is not a lot of information available on this guy. There just isn't. He's just one of these guys I found. Thank God I have newspaper archives, because I found newspaper accounts from the 40s and the 50s and things like that. But otherwise, besides these brief newspaper accounts, there's not a lot to go on as far as personal life, kind of in between the game and the arrests.
Yeah.
And then one guy, somehow, because his dad played with a guy who knew him, this guy, author named Eric Stone, who apparently usually writes about economics and things like that, decided to go talk to this guy and write a book on him called The Wrong Side of the Wall, The Life of Blackie Schwamb, the greatest prison baseball player of all time.
Okay.
So he wrote this book, and it's really the only place you'll ever find any backstory on this man. So if this didn't exist, this guy would be lost to history kind of completely. So it's pretty fascinating, honestly. Now, his dad's name is Chester, and his brother's name is Chester Jr.
Oh, boy.
So right away with that. And Blackie's going to name his kid after himself, too, when he gets older. It's
cyclical.
This junior thing is cyclical. It's a problem.
Nobody stops.
That's like alcoholism. It's just passed down through the generations. It's fucking miserable.
I'm telling you, pride is an ugly thing.
Pride is an ugly thing. I like that.
It's overrated.
I like that.
Skip that shit.
Way overrated.
Run straight to shame.
Yeah, it's shame. I've lived in shame my entire life, and I feel like it's the best way to go.
It is.
It really is. Right now, I'm full of shame. I don't know why, but I am. So he comes from kind of a rough and rugged family here. His maternal grandmother she was married like 3 times. This is in the 1800s when that was like kind of rare. And also like she was kind of she's like a chubbier woman. And because there's a picture of her, and she was very tough because she ran a bar in a mining camp in Montana.
Holy hell.
That's a tough woman.
She served actual 49ers.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's a tough lady, man. If you run a bar in a mining camp in Montana, like watch Deadwood. That's what a bar in a mining camp is. And Al Swearingen had to run that shit with an iron fist and a knife and a gun, and Dan Doherty there to do his bidding.
To keep people paying for their drinks.
I mean, it was just to keep them from killing the prostitutes. Never mind paying for their drinks, from beating your whatever,
just to make them do business,
cheating at the games and everything else. Like, it was wild.
Do business like civilized human beings.
Absolutely. So for a woman to be running a bar up there, you got to be double tough. So that's pretty awesome. And his mother's name was Jeanette. Everybody called her Janet, and she grew up in the bar there. So his mother is also kind of aware of a more rugged lifestyle.
Yeah.
But his mom's a little more genteel. and not really.
She wanted no part of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to change this shit.
His mom is maybe the first lady in the family to, instead of like some families have, this is the first one to go to college.
Yeah.
She's the first one who won't just on a whim break a beer bottle over the fucking, break a whiskey bottle on the bar and cut you with it.
She recognized there's an easier way of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her easier way was getting married. She married Chester Hinton, is obviously Blackie's dad here, in Detroit in 1921. Now, his dad was kind of very tall, by the way. Blackie's 6'5".
Holy shit.
Which back then was a fucking towering monster. I mean, you were like in training camp in baseball the one year he came in, there was 300 people and he was the tallest.
Wow.
So 6'5" didn't exist much back then.
Right. It's hard to fit in a wagon like that.
Nothing fit. Like, I'm 6'4", nothing fits me now.
Right.
And if I'm ever somewhere where there's older shit, I don't fit anywhere. It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Like, go to Disneyland and ride the Little Nemo ride.
Yeah.
That used to be the summer. That shit was made for people in the 50s
Yeah.
who are not 6'4", because I can't fit in that thing and
I'm
it hurts.
5'8", and that thing's a nightmare for me.
It hurts.
It's miserable.
It's very
I don't know
miserable.
how you do it.
I was just, oh God, Jesus, when's it over? Every time it bumped, I'd go, oh God, because my knee would rack against the. It was so bad. So it must have been really bad for guys back then to be super tall. Mm-hmm. But his dad was like a well dressed kind of a dapper kind of cat for back then, which was kind of where Ralph gets it from here, because Ralph, it's his real name, but that's where Blackie gets it from.
Classy Detroit.
Classy Detroit,
Yeah.
exactly. So they end up moving to Los Angeles, and Chester was a master builder and carpenter.
Oh.
So he always had work, especially in Los Angeles, because from this time until, I don't know, the fucking late 80s, it was just an ongoing construction
Right.
boom,
Yeah.
but especially in the 30s and 40s and the 20s, because there was tons of land,
Right.
and it was cheap as shit, and they were giving out permits basically for nothing because they wanted expansion. So
Sure.
if you wanted a permit, you wanted to build something, they just, there you go, build it. It didn't cost a lot to do that, so you could really do a lot. Janet was she was a plainer woman, his mom, but liked to wear like furs and shit like that, liked to be fancy from time to time. But everybody said she was a good mother. She was sober, not crazy or anything like that. She kept the household at an even keel.
Okay.
And the father, from what I understand, wasn't any kind of like alcoholic lunatic either. So where Blackie came from here, I am not sure.
Okay.
His brother's a bit of a drinker too, but nothing like this guy. Like, Blackie is fucking next level. He's crazy.
Yeah.
He's just a lunatic. Like, people like this don't exist anymore. They just don't. If they do, they're in jail, like, from the time they're 17.
Riding the bus on loop in New York.
Yeah, or they're riding their bicycle around Phoenix with a meth backpack. One of the two.
T-shirt.
And no T-shirt. When it's either 115 or 40 out.
Right.
It's like, either way,
pedaling.
you need to cover yourself, sir. Right. So the family always called him Rich and Richie. So he always goes by, whenever he signs anything, like a card, like, if he gives somebody a Christmas card, it's signed Richie always.
Okay.
So he always goes by Richie to people who know him.
And his name is Ralph.
His first name is Ralph, but apparently he liked Richie, which is weird because his name is Dick Schwamb then, which kind of sounds like a Dick Schwab, which is kind of like he's like a venereal tester.
Or also just Dick Schwamb. That sounds like schmegma.
But he goes by Richie and Rich, not even Rick. I don't know. I don't even know if a Rick existed back then.
I don't know.
Isn't the guy's name Rick in Casablanca, though?
Maybe.
That's like 1940.
My uncle's name was Ricky, and he was born in the 50s. His actual name is Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky Henderson was born in the 50s, and he's Ricky. There's a lot of Ricky.
Ricky Ricardo.
That
was popular.
Ricardo. Well, his name was Ricardo, which is...
That's pretty shitty.
Hilarious, by the way.
That's awful.
I'll name myself Ricardo. It's not like someone wrote it and cast him. That's their show. They had full control over it. So it's weird that he would name himself Ricardo. That's all I'm saying. So, by the way, in Teen Wolf, I believe the father's name is Howard as well. So that's the...
Yeah. What the fuck?
You have
they wrote that in the script.
You have a control over that. No one said,
we name him Howard.
Howard? I'm not doing that, right? Call him Edward or something, right? I don't know. Frank? Robert?
Edward.
Pick a fucking name. That's not Howard. Any of the other names.
That's just, I don't know, a little bit better Howard. Not much better.
It's just not Howard.
That's an awful name, too.
Which is great. So they had a house on the recently paved street. They lived at 1638 South Westmoreland, which was kind of near a tram line that ran to Venice and everything like that. So a cool little place to grow up. The neighborhood was annexed by Los Angeles in the 1890s. And up until the early 1920s, it was a really wealthy area.
Awesome.
This is where like a lot of these silent movie stars lived in this area. And then it kind of, early 20s came, movie stars moved out, and like it started becoming more like a blue collar ethnic neighborhood.
Got it.
It was kind of like a tiny Pittsburgh with a bunch of like Germans and
what's this area called?
Italians. This is, I don't even know exactly right here, but it's off by Lancaster in that area, or south of there. So there's a bunch of houses there. Like Fatty Arbuckle lived there.
Oh,
people like that. Let's see about the
That's
only person
awesome.
you probably would have heard of out of this. So it's to the north and a bit west of Hollywood, is what they say here. So north and west.
Northwest. That would be just south of Malibu.
Somewhere up there, I guess.
That's nice.
That's nice, but I think this is not that far out. Fucking Malibu, that's way out there.
So it's like in that inland area near like it's probably near Manhattan Beach and all that
Somewhere
stuff.
like that, probably. Yeah, I can't place it.
I bet it's real nice.
So as in 1928, there was the intersection of Hollywood and Vine was still orange groves there. That's where like there was streets, but on the sides were orange groves, not prostitutes and
people getting a fix,
struggling comedians, prostitutes.
Yeah.
So same thing,
right?
So there was like horses all over the place and shit like that. People would fight in the streets because like a car would cut off their horse, so there'd be fights in like dust clouds coming up in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. As a horseman and a guy in a car fought each other in the street, like
the original road rage.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's fucking awesome. I would love to see that and go, you have any idea what's going to happen here?
Right.
100 years from now, this is crazy. This is so different. You have no clue. So,
but kind of still the same.
But similar.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Right. Very similar, but just it'll be more passive aggressive.
Yeah,
rather than actual punching, you'll sabotage someone's career.
And so many people that would wish there was access to orange trees.
Please.
So many people would love it.
One orange, please. So the neighborhood here was like German, Greek, and Italian kind of. That was everybody there. It was kind of blue collar, and so Chester Sr. worked all through the Depression. Luckily for them, because of the construction, and LA was one of the few places where construction was booming during the Depression. Sure. So Ralph said they always had Blackie said they always had meat on the table and things like that. And they did end up having to move to a less expensive area though to make it so they could survive and still have some quality of life here. So they moved along. They moved to 69th Street near Vermont Avenue, and it had cheaper housing. And there was a lot of open spaces and a lot of strawberry fields and shit like that around. Lord. It's just super weird to hear this.
You forget that L.A. was founded on agriculture. That was a thing there.
Yeah, that's all it was.
And now it's all the way up in Bakersfield.
Yeah, they pushed that shit way out.
Get that to where it's hot.
Grow things? Yeah. A tree in your yard maybe, but outside of that. So Ralph went to the 68th Street grade school, which was right by his house. A guy named Jim Mew was a childhood friend of his. And he says that's how he got the name. He remembers how he got the name Blackie. He was with him when he got it. Apparently, they went to see a Saturday matinee, and it was a Western, and all the bad guys wore black. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as Pistola Pete over there.
Right.
It's so weird. They all wore black, and Ralph thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. He was like, I like all the black, bad guys wearing black. So he started wearing black jeans and black shirts.
Oh.
And so all the other kids started calling him Blackie because he wore black all the time.
Johnny Cash is a hack.
So that was it right there. This is the fucking original guy. So this is in the 30s he did this. So he just decided. And so is Pistol Pete. He's a hack too.
Right.
So he has big, giant fucking ears.
Oh, no.
Big car door. I mean.
Poor bastard.
Wow.
And he's big. You know what I mean?
6'5", and he's got like a long, thin head and big fucking car door stick. Not big like
long.
Not big like on his head like, satellite dishes, but they just stick out completely like a, Like, what are those cartoons that have the little ears that stick out?
Oh, shit, I don't know.
God damn it, I can't think of it. But one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm just making this little thing around my head.
You're making like deer antlers.
It's kind of like on the side, though. Like, hey, over here.
Sweet Christ.
So he would, and a lot of people, his whole family had big ears. It was just like a trait, and he got in a shitload of fights about his ears.
But he's 6'5", and they're gonna stand. I mean, people see you coming above the crowd, you know what I mean? And those are there too.
Yep,
that's horrible.
He got picked on a lot, which made him fight a lot because he didn't want anybody talking about his ears. Leave me alone about my damn ears. Otherwise, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
If not, well, you know what? We'll call him crafty. He's smart, but he doesn't use it for anything good. So we're going to call him crafty or clever, I believe would be a better way to put it. He uses it there. He had the measles and the mumps as a kid. Had both of them. This is inoculation, so you just get them.
Thank God I never had to deal with that.
Right? Measles and mumps, survived it and was fine and didn't stunt his growth or anything
mumps
like that.
Mumps are just when your cheeks get really big, but what the fuck is measles? Is that marks and shit?
Thing. Yeah, measles is all. Measles attacks all sorts of shit internally,
both
too.
Immune diseases, right?
Yeah, similar to chickenpox, I think.
Fuck.
So he had in the spectrum of, not the same disease, obviously. He also was the best throwing arm in the neighborhood as well. Had a great arm.
Should be.
Yeah. He said that his friend of his said that they had a fort that he and Blackie and some other kids built. They dug it into the dirt of a vacant lot next to a glass factory. Okay. One of the guys bet Ralph that he couldn't throw a rock and break one of the big panes of glass that was being taken out on factory trucks, that they had just constructed to go to.
So throw a rock and blast that thing on the truck?
Yeah, I bet you can't do it. So he did it, they said, from more than about 100 feet away. He threw a rock and shattered the thing. His friend said, quote, "We all just stood there for a moment watching the glass rain down on the pavement. Then we ran like hell, laughing all the way." We didn't get caught. So that's good. Jesus Christ. That's interesting.
That's horrifying.
That's just,
killed somebody.
The little hoodlums, that's all. But that's
the fun we used to get in.
Fun 20s hoodlumism, though. No one got hurt. That's fine, I guess.
But that glass doesn't
that's a
glass
plate
has so much technology today. You throw a rock through it, and
it doesn't even move.
Right.
But
it crumples. The rock goes through it.
It came down in guillotines of deadly glass.
Take a leg off of somebody.
Luckily, he was driving on a truck.
Yeah.
So, but if anyone was near it, God forbid, Jesus,
they'd fucking explode.
It's wild. So he drops out of school in the 10th grade. He apparently took part in every sport he could do and was good at it all because he was big and athletic. So back then, if you're the biggest, most athletic guy, you'll probably do pretty well. He ends up quitting after he gets done with the 10th grade.
Yeah,
that's enough of this, right?
Pretty common. Then.
I got about enough here.
He's a scholar back then.
No shit. He gives the reason as wanting to enlist in the Navy. But we'll get to that. He doesn't do that for a while because it's a mess here. He ended up skipping 5th grade. Blackie.
Because he was smart?
He was smart in elementary school. So they skipped him 5th grade, but then he dropped out. So I'd like to know how many kids skipped a grade and then dropped out. That's probably not many. In the 10th grade anyway. His brother said he could be a good student when something interested him. If he liked something, he would get good grades in it, but otherwise he just didn't give a shit. And he liked to hang out with older kids. They said he was about average height until he turned about 12, and then he shot up a foot, which is basically my story. I was never real tall, and then in the 8th grade, I grew a foot. It was like, in a summer.
Yeah.
Like, wow, where'd that come from?
You're still growing.
Oh, I was in so much pain, too. That was bad. Grow a foot in 3 months.
I wish.
That shit hurts. It hurts bad.
I'll deal with it.
Yeah. Let's slap it on you. So after that, he ended up, now he was really good in all these sports. His height really helped him out a lot. So good for him here. Later on, too, in his medical history, in 1949, which is well into our story, he does have a bout of gonorrhea that he fully recovers from as well.
This poor guy, penicillin could have changed his life.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. This guy just lived the wrong time.
Yeah.
If he was born 30 years later, his life would have been so much better when it comes to that. He would have been in prison from the time he was 20, though, because there's some shit that he gets in trouble for where you're like, how is that not 20 years in prison? What's going on back then? Back then.
Yeah, maybe these diseases are what kept him out of jail for a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah, that's possible.
It slowed him down for a minute.
Yeah, back then, I was super drunk was a legitimate legal excuse. You could do something, they'd be like, well, he was hammered. Case dismissed. I'm not even fucking around.
You
it
know
happens
what that
to him.
Does to you?
It happens to him. He gets things, whereas now that's extra. It was like, well, you were drunk too? Well, that was dumb. Now it's negligence on top of the other shit. Shit, that was an excuse back then. Oh, well, he was drunk. Who isn't drunk? Jesus.
Blame Bartles and James, not him.
Yeah. He began drinking hard at 16. That's when he really, which isn't abnormal. A lot of people drink hard around there. Anybody in Wisconsin's like fucking late bloomer, this guy is, I guess, huh?
What a pussy.
Jesus. That's parents must have really been on top of him, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
So he likes beer, but drinks whiskey with a beer chaser. That's his favorite drink there, because it gets him good and shit-faced. He drinks, he'll drink alone, he'll drink with people, he's sociable.
Yeah.
Or if he just needs to get shit-faced, he will. He says later on, about 5 whiskeys will get him feeling good.
Yeah.
That's when he starts to feel good buzz. About 5 whiskeys.
Fuck.
He's like he's in Mad Men or something.
Wow.
He's like Don Draper, this fucking guy. What is happening?
It's fucking baseball playing George Thorogood.
That's wrecking it.
Yeah. Going hard. All day.
All day.
Yeah. 5 whiskeys to get you started?
To get you started. He's like, that's when I start to feel tipsy.
Yeah.
That's, 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, and 1 beer.
Yeah.
That's 3.
Yeah.
He's
that's
like,
enough.
Keep him coming.
And that's when he starts.
He's
right.
Like, and
another round.
And George, what else do you have to say for yourself? He says that he tells a psychiatrist later that he's always cheerful and he thinks he's the life of the party when he's drinking. But when he drinks too much, he becomes either violent or sleepy. So
yeah.
He basically fights and then passes out and then goes, I don't remember any of that shit. That's it's always his thing that he does. Never saves any money because he's always out carousing, drinking, buying fancy clothes, spending money on women, just doing shit like that. And he says that he was sexually promiscuous since about 13.
Wow.
So that's 1939.
Yeah.
We're talking, that's when Wizard of Oz came out.
Right.
So think about in that era, he was finding teenage girls to fuck him. That's game.
Yeah.
That's game.
Or is it?
I would think it would be difficult back then. Well, yeah, hopefully it wasn't forced.
Who knows?
But if it was at least consensual, I would think you got to have some game to get Judy Garland to fuck you in 1939.
Yeah, she had a long dress.
Right off. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right off the farm in Kansas.
Cover it up.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult.
Back when they were bragging that they had the shit in color. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was a huge deal.
That's what he was fucking then.
Yeah, that's when he started fucking.
As a child.
Go see the Wizard of Oz and then get some pussy.
Unbelievable.
So at that time, the William Wrigley Jr., who owned Wrigley and also Wrigley Field.
The gum and the field, right?
Yeah, built Wrigley Field, owned the Cubs. He also owned the local minor league team, the Angels, there as well.
Really?
He owned them, yeah. So he also owned Catalina Island as well.
He owned Catalina Island.
He purchased, in 1919, he purchased Santa Catalina Island.
That's fucking unbelievable.
Which is crazy to think about. People go there as like a day trip.
It's like a city.
Yeah, he owned the island. Just bought it. That's how much money. That's how much gum people were chewing, apparently.
Right.
Holy shit. People, what were you doing back then with the gum?
That's some sore jaws.
Holy fuck. Seriously, what were they?
To buy an island.
How much gum was being in? I don't think whoever is in charge of Bubblicious is buying shit. Not an island. That's Catalina, for Christ's sake.
Their profit margins are shit if they can't afford an island.
I don't know what Catalina, if that meant anything to anybody back then, or if it was just like that shitty island out there. Because it's 26 miles out. It's a while,
distance,
so I don't know, but he did. Now, apparently the Angels were a Cubs farm team, and they're the only Pacific Coast League team to actually be connected to a major league team. All the rest were independents. Okay. So Wrigley built another Wrigley in South Central LA.
Oh boy,
he built Wrigley Field. too. For the Angels.
Similar, same look?
No, small. It was a minor league stadium. It cost $1.1 million to build in 1925.
Oh, my.
And had seats for 22,457 fans. So we're talking half the capacity of Wrigley.
For $1 million, that's what you built.
Yeah, now that would be $1.1 billion.
Yeah, you couldn't build the parking lot of that place for $1 million.
Fuck, no, not in L.A.
No.
South Central there. So it was kind of a modern Spanish style with a red tile roof and a white stucco facade.
Does it still exist?
No. It's in South. No, you know of a fucking 22,000 seat ballpark in South Central fucking LA right now? Has anyone ever rapped about that? Hitting switches next to the ballpark. No, I've never heard that shit before.
I wondered if that's what the Goodyear blimp was flying over.
Rolling by Wrigley, too. I've never heard Dr. Dre say that, ever.
Ice Cube telling 20,000 people that Ice Cube's a pimp.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even saw the lights outside Wrigley Field, and they said Ice Cube's a pimp.
Right.
That's what he would have said. So, yeah, this was, at the time, a white neighborhood, a white working class neighborhood. Compton was white back then, as we'll talk about as well. As, everywhere kind of was, really, in L.A.
Yeah.
So, kind of World War II is when more people started coming, more Mexican people started coming, black people started coming, because there was a lot of war jobs out there. So in 1930s, his friends said that him and they would take a streetcar, or they'd ride their bikes to the ballpark. They'd get there early to stand outside the left field fence, waiting for baseballs that were hit out in batting practice,
awesome.
which is really cool. Once, I guess, Blackie got 4 balls in one day. And he said, we used those babies for about 6 months in our Sandlot games.
Awesome.
Yeah, back then a ball was expensive. Yeah. So if you got one for free, hey, score.
You got 4 of them.
Yeah, you got 4 of them. So, yeah, they would hang around until the second or third inning. And, that was kind of it. And sometimes they would get, one of the gate guys would be like, come on in. They'd let the kids in for free, because after the game started and all that, they'd be like, hey, we got seats, get in here. So they'd do that. They'd hang out to see if they'd let them in, basically. And they'd do that sort of shit. He goes to high school in Washington High School in L.A., which I don't know if that still exists, because from 1937 to 1956, 14 players from that school made the major leagues.
Is that right?
It was a huge major league, farm system.
Yeah.
And then after that, no more. So I assume the high school had to have closed.
You'd think so.
It had to have. Now, the students, the ball players back then, nowadays, kind of high schools, like athletes, they do crazy shit, but they have to act like they're straight and narrow.
Right.
Back then, they didn't even have to act like they were straight and narrow.
Really?
They could be like, yeah, they're just the wild ball players, and everybody kind of was accepting of that. So, yeah, he'd get into trouble. And when he was 12 or 13 for gambling and drinking and smoking.
Okay.
12, 13 years old, he'd wander in drunk, with cigarette breath, talking about, I lost my ass at the fucking tables today. It's wild.
Making up that.
Yeah, he has a friend named Ted Gardner. Now, Ted Gardner he's known him since grade school. Ted's from Compton. He is going to be kind of their partners in crime from now and throughout. Okay. Throughout his whole life, they're going to be partners in crime. They used to... Basically, I guess in those days, pinball machines were gambling.
Right.
So they'd pay off in nickels. So
wait, what?
Pinball, you'd pay, but it was like gambling.
Like skee-ball?
Yeah, if you would win, it was almost like a slot machine, but that you could skill.
Wow.
If you were good at pinball, you could win money. It was like a gambling machine almost back then. So I guess they had different versions of them. They had ones for kids, and then they had ones for adults that would pay off in nickels.
Sure.
So he said rather Blackie with Ted sometimes would break into malt shops after hours through the skylights. Apparently there was a lot of skylights before the Second World War in L.A. Everybody had skylights.
Makes sense.
And so he'd pop the glass off and lower himself down, take the glass off the pinball machine. He'd tape the tilt mechanism into place so it wouldn't go off, prop it up so that it was flat, and he would run through 200 or 300 games to collect all the coins. So it was flat. So he could basically just make it do whatever he wanted.
What a hustle.
And manipulate it. So he'd play all night and fucking clear all the nickels out of the thing and then take off. That was his game that he would do here. He'd go hang out with his friends and buy shit and, take his friends out to dinner and shit like that.
That's a long way to go to get nickels.
Yeah, it would take a couple hours.
Yeah,
but
break in.
A nickel's a lot back then.
Break into the machine.
Hey.
And then manipulate it to pay out.
If you got $5 though back then,
holy shit!
I mean, that's $5 was like $100. It was a lot of money.
At that point, it's not theft as much as it is working.
It's working. He worked it hard.
He's got to put 8 hours in to get.
He almost got to be impressed by it.
It's a lot of work for some nickels.
Yeah.
He was hip-hop's biggest mogul, the man who redefined fame, fortune, and the music industry.
The first male rapper to be honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy built an empire and lived a life most people only dream about.
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up.
But just as quickly as his empire rose, it came crashing down.
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution.
I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. I'm disgusted. I'm so sorry.
Until you're wearing an orange jumpsuit, it's not real. Now it's real.
From his meteoric rise to his shocking fall from grace, from law and crime, this is the rise and fall of Diddy. Listen to the rise and fall of Diddy exclusively with Wondery Plus.
Have you ever gotten a message out of the blue? Maybe you ignore them. Or maybe you end up in conversation. Maybe they tell you about an amazing offer. I can really show you how to make some money. And maybe that gets you into a lot of trouble. But this isn't a story about people like you, the people receiving these messages. This is a story about the people behind the messages, on the other end of the line. Thousands of them, working in a micro-city built for scammers. From Wondery, the makers of Dr. Death and Kill List, comes Scam Factory, a new series about survival at the expense of others. Follow Scam Factory on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Scam Factory early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
He says, quote, I was also the champion quarter logger of the neighborhood. I could make $20 a day just tossing quarters. He'd play quarters.
Okay.
And he was really good at it. So he said that he was popular. Everybody said that a lot of the girls liked him because he was, he's a bigger guy.
Right.
And he's around hustling. He's kind of like any girl that likes the bad guy. He's the bad guy.
And he's got like $30 in change in his pocket.
Which is huge back then. Yeah. I mean, you can buy malts till your heart's content at that shit.
Jesus.
Look at him jingling down the street. Fuck. The man who jingled loudest got the most ass back then, right. Jimmy. That's how it worked.
$10 in nickels and 20 in quarters.
You're a stud back then. A stud. So he has a wealthy aunt as well, which is weird. I guess his father's brother is a vice president of JCPenney as well, with JCPenney Corporation at that point. So he would do his little peddly crimes and shit like that. Drops out of school, like we said. He's drinking. Everybody's drunk in his family. Long line of drunks. Apparently, there's a psychiatric report later that states his father and 2 maternal uncles, quote, drank alcohol to excess.
Okay.
His father drank heavily much of the time that he was at home. His older brother also likes to drink, but the mother never drank.
Okay.
So one evening, he was 4 years old.
Yeah.
His parents had some friends over, and Blackie knocked over 2 whole bottles of beer. And, so he said that, knocked over or knocked back, not knocked over.
He drank them.
He drank them, 2 whole bottles at 4.
Oh boy.
So he says, quote, it became a feat, something my dad told over and over again.
Told everybody.
So he always heard what a tolerance for booze my little son has. So that was the only thing that his dad ever said nice to him, I think, was that he had a good tolerance. So I don't know. He said one Friday night, he was 16, and he was in the garage drinking beer with his father, as you do.
Yeah.
He told his father he's going to Tijuana for the weekend with his friend, and his father said no.
Yeah.
As you would tell your 16-year-old that you can't do that. And he says, quote, I say I'm going, and he hit me. I knocked him down. Worst day of my life. I went to Tijuana, and things were real chilly for about a week around the house. But then they settled down, and he didn't put any pressure on me anymore. That ended the discipline. It broke his heart. He hit me right in the chin, and all it did was back me up a little. I hit him and flattened him. So
I'm going to Tijuana. No, you're not. We're going to fight about it. 1 punch each, and then he goes to Tijuana
he goes to
anyway.
Tijuana, and the father just said, well, I guess you're a man now.
I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, there you go. So he said his father never physically abused him, just like spankings and shit, but never scared him or, made him fear his dad or any hardcore beatings. Back then, beatings are a sliding scale.
Yeah.
Everyone got hit, but it was how, is it abuse or is it,
right.
whatever, spanking.
I went to Tijuana in the 2000s, James, and it was fucking prehistoric down there then.
Yeah.
I can't imagine in the 20s.
Imagine what it was
Oh,
like.
my.
It was, you just went down there. It was probably, I assume, just to buy women and be debaucherous and, wander the streets drinking tequila and, you can beat them in there. They don't even mind.
Right.
You get yourself 4 or 5 whores for like $1 and you can just beat them and do whatever you want to them. It's great down there. You're going to love love it.
$30 in nickels and quarters.
Yeah,
He's a king down there.
Shit, that's half of Tijuana at that point.
That's stepping back in time, though. I'm sure of it.
So yeah, he said that he was a fighter always. He's always fighting, and that continues forever. Now, Gene Mauch, who played in the major leagues and managed for I think 25 years in the major leagues, was a very famous guy here. He played ball with Blackie when they were teenagers in the Sandlot, which is wild here. And he says, quote, "When sober, Blackie was one great kid. With alcohol, he actually pursued daring and trouble."
Yeah,
which is what he was. It
sounds like everybody.
With alcohol, he started to do crazy shit. Well,
weird,
really, strange. So apparently, back then, baseball was there was no second sport. It was baseball and then a bunch of other shit that a few people play on the side. Football didn't really matter. No one cared about professional football back then. It was only a little bit of college.
Right.
Basketball was not, they didn't even have the NBA yet. So, I mean,
this is America's pastime for a reason.
This is it.
Yeah.
Every kid wants to be a ball player.
Right.
That's just what they all want to do. So much like in the movie The Sandlot, that was real. These were sandlots all over LA, had shit, just all these games going on. It's like the ball courts in New York, like basketball courts in New York in the 70s and 80s. And it was just teeming with baseball talent. Just these kids were playing these sandlot games that were better than high school games. The scouts would go to the sandlots, not to the high schools, because that's where the good games were.
Right.
It was the sandlots. So, he started, hanging around different playgrounds and different, sandlots and being in all these different games. He's playing games with Gene Mauch, like we said, who was a major league manager and player forever. So, they were playing everything, and he ended up, he played with the Rosabelle Plumbers, who were regularly in contention for the title of best Los Angeles semi-pro team.
And he played with them.
And he was playing with them. Yeah. He's found in 1943 at first. He's seen at first by a scout named Pete Peterson, who Howard, Pete Peterson, and Ricardo all hang out together.
Much.
Too many. So that scout originally sees him, and then he'll find him again later, which is interesting. His height and his ears make him remember him, who he is. He's hard to miss.
Yeah, satellite.
It's hard to miss. Yeah. That's it. Like, oh shit, I see something in there. Now, he's already a gambler at that point.
Right.
He says, quote, "I always had an angle. Things were too easy for me. It seemed whatever I decided to undertake, I could make work." And so he had a lot of confidence that he could just go do shit.
He's a hustler, baby.
He's a hustler. Yeah. That's it. And gambling he was all about gambling by this point. He loved it. We're talking 14 years old. He was gambler through and through. He loved doing his quarters, loved to win at that. Then he ends up in 1942 at 16. He runs away to Arizona with some friends.
Yeah,
now imagine what Arizona was. Arizona sucks now.
Yeah.
We're here. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Imagine that in 1942 what this place was like.
It's ugly.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
And later on, when he's playing minors in Arizona at one point, he comes down to Phoenix, takes the bus down from Globe to Phoenix. And Phoenix back then was like a wild mining town. Like it wasn't a place where people move with their families.
It was a metropolis.
No, it was bars and whorehouses and, and
Grand Avenue and Van Buren. That was it.
It was Deadwood, basically. That was what it was back then, because it was all miners and shit, and that's what he loved. He's like, now we're talking gambling houses and, cat houses. This is better here. So he runs away. They stop in Tucson, where one of them knew somebody, and they decide to break into some resort cabins in the nearby hills. This is their plan. He says, "We didn't steal anything, just drank up the booze and ate some food." But he ends up getting caught when one of his mother's friends finds out and turns them all in.
Okay.
So, or one of his friend's mothers, sorry. One of his mother's friends.
All right.
One of his friend's mothers that he did it with found out about it and turned them all in. So after 2 days in jail, he ends up getting probation. But the agreement is he'll get probation as long as he agrees to join the service on his 17th birthday, which is what they did a lot back then.
Yeah.
If you were a kind of a juvenile fuck up, they'd say you can either go to jail or you can go in the military.
Yeah.
And guys would go in the military.
That was the Arizona judicial system?
That was Arizona.
Wow.
And they returned him to L.A. after that. I found this. The fucked up part is I found this in the newspaper and didn't know if it was him. It was just said Ralph Schwamb, and it was under an arrest thing from an Arizona newspaper from 1943. 1943.
Wow.
And it's the same fucking thing. It's him. It's the dates match up.
That's crazy.
He apparently he was his bond was $500. So someone had to pay $500 and then he could go and join the military, basically. So at some point in 1943, actually on his birthday in 1943, his 17th birthday, he joins the Navy.
Okay.
He, in his mind, he said he figured that he was less likely to see action at sea than he would be on land.
Boy, oh boy.
Which is, in that war, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Battle of Midway had taken place about a year before, and he kind of thought that whole thing was settling down in the Pacific, so it wasn't.
They fixed it, he thinks.
Yeah, he was like, that should be good now, so I'll just join that, and that way I won't end up,
So they put him in San Diego?
So, well, we'll find out here.
Chicago?
Well, he's there for a little while.
Yep.
I don't know if he's actually, we'll think about it here. So he thinks the Japanese it's basically over and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Grace.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
Grace is him joining the military to go fight in World War II.
Instead of go to jail.
That's Grace.
Yeah.
So that tells you the kind of story we're talking about here. What's in store for you here. So his naval career, the way in this book, the way the guy puts it, Blackie, he puts it like this: Blackie's own account of his naval career was heroic, sad, and illusory as the attack on Los Angeles. So basically what he's saying that he had this like real heroic career. He says that he was on a destroyer headed for the Pacific Front that was torpedoed and went down.
Okay.
That's his story.
So he says he was on something that stunk.
Yeah, he said he was one of the fewer than 20 people who survived on the whole ship.
Oh.
Yeah, he said he was sent back to Hawaii and was supposed to get leave to go home for 30 days, but instead he was reassigned to a ship that was headed back out in a day or two.
Okay.
So the officer who delivered the news, he said, wasn't very nice about it. So he and a friend, who was another guy who was in that ship that sunk, what he said, flipped a coin to see which one of them would punch the officer. And Blackie won. He said that he saluted the flag, turned around, and decked the officer. So he's arrested and dragged to naval prison for this, because you're not allowed to hit commanding officers there. That doesn't work.
Generally frowned upon.
Especially in war times. They tend to want you to
Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, in Hawaii, it didn't go over well.
The place was just attacked.
It didn't go over well.
Maybe let's not fight with each other.
Yeah, you're going back out. So that's what he said. But his companion later on, a woman named B. Franklin, who lived with him kind of through the last 20 years of his life, said that basically when he gets to the brig in handcuffs, his big brother Chester is in charge of that.
Okay.
So he runs into Chester, and without saying a word or removing the cuffs, Chester hauled him into a room and locked the door and beat him up.
Oh, that's awesome.
So him and his brother really never get along after this. They're estranged for a few years, and they'll hang out and drink once in a while, and that's about it.
Generally don't want to talk to a guy that beats you up in cuffs.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I said he just beat the shit out of his brother. So he's getting brutalized by his own brother, which is weird. Now, that's what he says. In actuality, the naval records say something a bit different.
What do they say?
They say September 1st, he went straight into training at the naval station in San Diego. His pay was $50 a month, and Jesus Christ. He was an AS, which was apprentice seaman. It's the lowest rank you could get when you enter the Navy there at the time. He was 168 pounds, 6'5", 168.
That's,
very, very thin.
That's not good.
He had a tattoo of a ship on his right upper forearm. By the way, by the mid-'60s, he's covered in tattoos.
Really?
Which nobody was covered in tattoos back then. But
those
he had
scary people.
Jail tattoos everywhere.
Wow.
Later on, somebody like... in the 1963 or something, when nobody had tattoos, he gets in like kind of a spat with a guy, and the guy trying to punk him was like, "I've done time. I'm not afraid of you," and pulls up his sleeves, and he's got a tattoo.
He's got like an anchor on his hand.
And he said, "A tattoo? Oh boy."
Yeah.
And then he rolled up his sleeves, and he's just fucking covered in tattoos. He's like a biker. But
awesome.
Then, it's pretty goddamn funny. So anyway, he's... This is wild. So he also has a tattoo of a bird on his upper right arm. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
He 3 days after he gets there, he completed gas mask instruction in the gas chamber and a large battery of physical and mental tests, had signed a copy of the rules and regulations, submitted his form for life insurance and all that sort of thing. He'd been rated a, quote, swimmer third class.
So he's good at this.
Is that good? Third class?
I don't know.
You don't want to be treated like a third-class citizen.
No, but is it like a
maybe that's
third-degree burn?
Maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Third class. First-class swimmers suck. Bunch of pussies. So the military were, trying to get people in, obviously. This was churning out people. We were in the middle of the war, but it took a long time to train. He's finally assigned to active duty with the Squadron Flight Air Wing 14 at San Diego Naval Station on January 8th, 44.
I want to know so bad what those fucking numbers mean, but I want to do zero research to do it, and I don't want it to be tweeted at me because I'll never remember it.
I just wish it was in my brain.
What the fuck is the 105th Airborne Division?
I wish I would have learned that earlier.
What do those numbers mean?
So
101st, we have 101 airborne divisions?
Apparently.
And why is the 101st the best one?
I don't know. After 100, did they decide to make a good one?
Right.
They're like, we should make one where they know what they're doing and make them the best.
Those other 100
make them jump out of planes and shit.
They fly around in circles?
That's it, yeah. They're checking engines, making sure that the fuel doesn't run out too quick. So
101st Infantry, everything's 100 and something.
Yeah, there's
How
a lot
many
of
we
them.
got?
A lot.
I guess.
I mean, it's a big army.
They're all over the world.
Shitloads of people. It costs us a fucking fortune. There better be hundreds of them. For what the shit it costs, half of our fucking domestic budget, there better be thousands of whatever those are. Just thousands of them, all over the place. So his rank was upgraded to S2C, which was Seaman second class.
Oh, jeez.
And
second class seaman?
Second class seaman. My seaman, it's all right. I mean, I ain't going to brag on it or nothing, but second class seaman.
Second class sounds like Paul Giamatti's seaman.
Yeah. Now he would be like fourth class seaman. Yeah, you don't want that.
No.
Nah. What genetically would you want out of him? Genetically, that might not pass genetically, but all the physical traits were, and we want none of those. Short, chubby, bald, bug-eyed, funny voice. How about no? Red hair? Shit. Fuck, this is terrible.
He's so typecast.
Third class seaman. Seaman third class. Get it out of here. Don't want it. First class seaman's like really top notch seaman, like
Brad Pitt stuff.
Like an Olympic athlete seaman. Second class seaman's just your average seaman. Just your average, going to make you
somebody that's really good at carpentry.
Something. Yeah, so you could be good at one thing, but then third class seaman is like, ugh. Nobody wants those jeans. Look at you. Put your shirt back on. Put it back on.
Second class is like Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, he's a second class. And then third class seaman.
At least he's tall.
That's what I mean. He's got something.
Right.
There's nothing else going for him, but he's tall.
Right.
He's 6'5". He's a big guy.
Plays the same guy in every movie.
Yeah. So he's rated a 4.0 in conduct, which is average, 3.6 in seamanship.
Oh.
He can gross. It's pretty good. He can bust it out on a
The Navy's got the worst names for things.
3.6 in mechanical ability and 3.6 in ability as leader of men. So basically,
is that a 5?
Basically, they were just average. Unless somebody really stood out as like spectacular, they just get average marks. That's how it worked here. He began to get into trouble immediately. And by February 1st, so January 8th, he was like ready to go.
3 weeks.
By February 1st, he's declared a, quote, straggler. He'd been missing from base, absent without leave since 7:30 in the morning on January 29th. He finally came back on February 6th. So he's gone for over a week. And in court for this, on March 9th, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 20 days of confinement and docked $36 in pay.
That's court-martialed, right?
That's pretty much court-martialed, yeah. So they let him out on April 3rd and assigned him to the USS Prince William, which was a small aircraft carrier that had been launched. It was a pretty new ship. The ship had been going between San Diego and the Pacific Islands for a little while.
Yeah.
So April 4th, he reports for duty. On April 4th, which was one day after he reported for duty, the Prince William goes out to sea. It's a short trip to get some planes and supplies out to other ships. By April 12th, he was back in San Diego and was transferred to a different ship. Which was another aircraft carrier that was scheduled to go right into the middle of the fighting in the Pacific.
Oh, Jesus.
The USS, I wanted to have 3 S's, USS San Jacinto.
Okay.
And that is going right into battle, like right in the middle of it, too. One of the pilots on that ship was George H.W. Bush.
Really?
41st president of the United States. Yeah, he was one of the Navy pilots on that ship.
Wow.
So he was supposed to be on the same ship as him there. Now they left San Diego, headed for the fighting at 7 in the morning on the 14th, and he wasn't there. Blackie didn't show up.
He went AWOL?
An hour later, after he missed the ship, he was declared a deserter with the notation intentions unknown.
Oh.
Ooh, we don't know what he's up to. A couple hours later, he woke up.
Oh, no.
He had a hangover in a cheap motel.
He got shit drunk because he knew he was leaving.
Shit drunk and overslept.
That's awesome.
Yep. He was like, fuck. But he said, it was good. Fine. He was bored on the boat. He didn't like it. He just was, tired of the boat. So he caught a train back to L.A. and just said, I'll just go back home. A week later, the Shore Patrol caught up with him and put him in handcuffs and brought him back to a military base in San Pedro. And he was brought up before a court-martial, which was a step up from deck court, which was the first one he did for whatever. He pleaded guilty. Not a whole lot else you can do. You weren't on the boat, and then you were in L.A. when you're supposed to be in the middle of the Pacific. So kind of hard to say you didn't do that. So, he pleads guilty to this shit here. He's docked $27 per month for 5 months and sentenced to 30 days of solitary confinement at Terminal Island Naval Prison.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. He got bread and water with a full food ration every third day. So... yeah.
That's awful.
That's a bad stuff.
Oh, my
40s
God.
too. That's bad shit. It's probably damp and awful. And
that's the penalty for not showing up?
Yeah, apparently. And you still have to show up.
Right.
Then when you're done with that, they let him out of there on June 30th and restored him to full duty the next day. That's how bad they needed guys.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Get him. If we can use him as a body, it doesn't matter. We'll deal with him for a while. So, he ends up going to San Pedro for reassignment. At 11:30 on the night of July 10th, a couple of Marine guards found him just outside the fence of the base. Lights had been out a half hour earlier, so they arrested him and threw him in the brig.
Because he's about to leave.
He's about to do something.
Right.
So he'd been absent without leave for only 30 minutes, but he again brought up before a court-martial, sentenced to pay another loss of $23.80 per month for 6 months and another 30 days in solitary.
It's half your pay.
He can't be making too much back then. So he's fighting for free at this point. So he said that he was doing that. He hated the whole thing, basically. He hated everything.
Yeah.
He knew the rules, but he just said that he didn't care, basically. Just didn't really give a shit. He found that cigarettes and matches were hard to come by in the jail. So he found cigarettes, but he had to figure out how to light them, basically. And when he did, he was cited on July 28th for possession of contraband and endangering the lives of prisoners by inserting a graphite pencil into the light socket to create sparks to light cigarettes.
Holy shit.
And that worked. He would get sparks and he'd light a cigarette off of it.
He's like making a pencil, like a number 2 pencil, smolder in the light.
Short out and shoot sparks out, and he's using that to...
fuck.
He's trying to catch a spark.
How much do you want a cigarette?
That's wild, man.
That's
and dangerous as well. So, they added 20 days to his confinement and took another $36 out of his pay. Now he's in the hole, I think.
Yeah.
Now he's like...
he's going to have a lien.
He owes.
Yeah.
He owes there. So
he's going to have a payday loan to pay his fucking service
off.
on.
Oh, shit. On September 8th, he was released and once again sent to San Pedro to await another assignment. And 2 days later, around 11:30 at night again, he takes off again.
Right.
Vanishes. He basically was drunk wandering around, and Shore Patrol nabbed him again, hanging out at one of the bars he hangs out at. And this time he is recommended for a general court-martial, which is a serious thing, apparently. And he was super uncooperative in jail. While awaiting trial, he received warnings for his conduct, minor infractions, removing things from his uniform that he's not supposed to, just being a prick, not doing what he's supposed to. Which is probably how I would have reacted to, honestly, but I get it. So on October 3rd, he's found guilty of absence from station without and duty without leave, and he's demoted to the ranking of apprentice seaman and sentenced to 2 years. You, sir, may fuck off. 2 years in Terminal Island Prison.
For the remainder of his service? What the fuck?
2 years, and then he's gone. At the end of it, he's going to be dishonorably discharged from the Navy.
Holy shit. That's a far cry from getting punched in the mouth.
See ya. Yeah, he is.
Or punching his brother, whatever he did.
This is too much.
This is unbelievable.
He punched his commanding officer, but that was a long time ago. So, I mean, later on, though, because they need sailors so bad, his sentence gets reduced, this is like a week later, to 15 months of confinement with the possibility of being restored to full duty in 8 months if he behaved himself.
Right.
That's how bad they needed people. Yeah. So, the dishonorable discharge was also softened to bad conduct discharge, which is a little less bad.
Is it?
It is. It's apparently, there's a ranking system.
Both of them sound shitty.
It's one is a third-class seaman. That's all we know. Bad is apparently second-class seaman.
Do you still get a military burial? You can't, right?
I don't know. Apparently this is like not so bad. The other one's like, Jesus, dishonorable. What did you do?
Piece of shit.
Yeah, Jesus. So on October 16th, 1944, he is transferred to the Naval Disciplinary Barracks on Terminal Island in Los Angeles Harbor. And that's how it goes here. And then the chief of Navy personnel cuts another month off the initial part of his sentence, so he could be out in 7 months if he's a good prisoner. But do you think he's a good prisoner?
No.
And what's the fucking motivation? To go to war?
Right.
That's my motivation?
Right.
If I'm really good, they'll send me to the fucking Pacific Ocean to get torpedoed. That sounds great.
If I'm really good, I can go fight in a war that they're going to talk about for several years to come.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's a big one.
It's the big one.
The big one. That's what I hear. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but right now it's pretty fucking big. So on December 5th, while in prison here, he's cited for a violation of prison regulations and thrown into solitary confinement again. On December 22nd, while being transferred somewhere, he escapes. So he escapes military jail. Mm-hmm. This is wonderful.
He really hates the military.
By the way, he's barely 18 years old.
Yeah.
This is a story of a guy.
This is a child still.
He hasn't even played baseball yet. This is crime in sports. He's a baseball player.
Right.
We haven't gotten to... No. He hasn't thrown a ball. All he's thrown is a rock at a plate glass window so far. It's fucking insane.
This is awesome.
It's crazy. So he went home for Christmas. That's why he escaped. And he basically said he got drunk for a week and stayed drunk all the way through New Year's Eve.
Should have just done time in Tucson, man.
Would have been easier, right?
Yeah,
Christ. Barely.
A little bit.
Well, he would have got drafted anyway, so he would have been drafted into the Army.
Either way, still going in.
So, yeah, this way he got to pick where he went, so that's why he did it. So he turns himself in at 8 in the evening on New Year's Day, basically starting to sober up a little bit. Turns himself in, 1945. The next day, he woke up and was so angry that he was there that he ripped his prison uniform to shreds. They came in, he was sitting in his underwear, and everything was in tatters on the floor. He tore it apart. That earned him 5 days of solitary again for destruction of government property. And basically, he ends up, the whole time he's there, he has zero good time. None. He has like reverse good time from all his infractions.
This is the best.
Finally, basically, it sunk in that he said he realized that he needed to cooperate for a little while just so he can get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. He wants out, so he figured the only way he's going to get out is to cooperate, so he starts to chill out a little bit. On June 1st, 45, he's transferred to the prison at Great Lakes National Training Center in Chicago. 2 months and 16 days of his good conduct allowance is restored as well, so he's doing well. Then, basically, the Emperor Hirohito surrenders.
Right.
Japan surrenders, and they kick him immediately out of the Navy. They're like, all right, we don't fucking need these people anymore. We don't need jerk-offs like this one anymore.
Right.
Anyone on the margins at that point, they just booted. Done. So he was given a bad conduct discharge, civilian clothing, quote, not to exceed $30 in value and $25 in cash, and kicked to the fucking curb out of the military prison.
Okay.
That was that. So, he listed carpenters, a helper, as his occupation on his discharge papers, but his job preference as professional baseball player. So, the Navy gave him a bus ride back to L.A.
Yeah.
So, that's how it worked. And he says, basically, quote, I got drunk, missed a ship, hit an officer, and did 2 years. That's his whole explanation. That first thing that was just an infraction.
Yeah.
He said that was that. That terminated my Navy career. I was very bitter. It was the biggest point in me deciding that life was unfair and was going against me. I decided it was never going to happen again unless I caused it.
What? Huh?
what, going against me? You did.
You caused all this.
Yeah, you joined the Navy.
Yeah.
One of the things in the military that the reason I didn't join the military is I'm bad at following directions.
Yeah.
So if you're not good at people telling you what to do, the military may not be for you.
Right.
It just might not be.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you have to be good at is you have to be cool with that.
Right.
Some people are and some people aren't.
You also got to be cool with everything. You know what I mean?
Also,
you just got to go along to get along.
Yeah, and if you join up during World War II, you have to expect you might actually go to combat at some point.
They're going to make you do some shit.
Yeah, it's just the way it works there. So, yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't go. Jeez.
Yeah, I would have been bad at it.
So close.
I would have ruined it. They don't need me. I would have just been a hindrance until they kicked me out. That would all it would have been. I would have been like Riddick Bowe.
I'll never forget hiding from that guy. The recruiter kept coming over.
They kept calling me.
Oh, my God.
Why did they dare?
He came to my apartment, so I just was like, yeah, cool, that sounds great. There's an education involved. So I went and took all the tests and stuff.
Oh, I
And
didn't
then
do
the
that.
day for sign-up or for, like, swearing, I just didn't show up. And the guy kept coming to my house and I kept, like, I'd hear a knock and my blinds would be open and I'd see him walk by and he's, like, looking through the blinds and stuff. And eventually I just stopped answering the door.
You kind of deserve that for filling out paperwork.
I did a lot of... Yeah, I went through a lot.
I said hello to the guy in gym class, and he found out my name and fucking my phone number and was calling my house every 5 fucking minutes.
Boy.
And then finally my dad goes, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
This kid ain't joining the fucking Marines. If you know him, you'd know he ain't joining the Marines, and you don't want him there if he did. So that's enough of that.
And then my lease was up and I never saw him again.
There you go. You had to run. At least he didn't track you down.
No.
Imagine that if he moved.
It's like following the
He knows. He knows. He's waving.
Yeah.
Hey, help with that couch?
I got some friends that could help you.
No. So, yeah. So anyway, he's in LA now, and he lives with his parents for a few months. He has no choice. He's only like 19 years old. So his father helps him get a job with a glass company. I don't know if it's the same one that he broke the window pane on or not. But
is it Acme?
I have no clue. But it's $45 a week.
That's decent money then.
Which was decent money back then, but not enough money for him. He didn't want to do that. No. After a couple weeks, he either quits or gets fired. He doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Who knows? He probably stopped showing up, I'd imagine. Got drunk and didn't show up anymore. So
there's less penalty for this.
Yeah, he won't get in trouble at all.
All they're going to do is fire me.
That's it. His parents were pissed off at him, though, for it. So basically, it's very tense around his house and everything like that. His father's and his mother both work. His father... There's some tension around the house for other reasons, though. His father, Chester, was working at Northrop Aviation, and he had a little issue where there's a woman named Edith who's his secretary, and he impregnates Edith.
Oh, no.
Not great, especially in the 40s. This was considered, now it's scandalous. Back then it was like, oh, my God.
And it's his secretary. How cliche.
It's very cliche.
Jesus.
Yeah. So anyway, his wife, Janet, ends up divorcing him for this, Blackie's mom, after 25 years of marriage. Edith was super young, too. Edith was only like 3 years older than Blackie.
Oh, my God.
So that really pissed off Janet.
Oh, boy.
He got his like 22-year-old secretary pregnant at 50. That's not going over well at home at all.
That's ugly.
Even in the 40s, that'll get you kicked out of your house.
Well...
You know,
today they'll get you an abortion and some hush money.
Either that or very, very expensive legal proceedings on all sides.
Yeah.
Back then that'll at least get you a divorce here. So the problem here, though, the father was fine with it. The father, Chester, said he wanted to marry Edith as soon as the divorce was through. Problem was, Edith is also married.
Oh, no.
No, this is very, very scandalous, man.
Holy... Oh, boy.
This is wild. So, anyway.
22-year-old. Oh, she's got to go home and tell her 20-something-year-old husband.
Got knocked up by my 50-year-old boss.
He's 50.
Yeah. Smells. The kid's going to come out smelling like Aqua Velva. I hope you're okay with that. I hope that's all right with you.
Jesus.
Because that's what's happening.
Oh, my.
So she's married. Obviously, this is a giant scandal. Let's let Blackie tell it here.
Yeah.
Blackie says, quote, she was a stone fox.
Yep.
He told me the whole scam, ran it down to me, talking about his dad. Never even mentioned it to my brother. We were in a bar across the street from Northrop, and in walks this guy just looking around the room. My dad's back was to him, and I was just staring at him, and he didn't go sit at the bar or nothing. He just stood there. He was about 6 feet, 190 pounds. I asked my dad, you know that guy? My dad turned around and he said, says, yes, that's Edith's husband. I say, I can't help you. And he says, okay. So he got up and the guy took him out in the parking lot and beat the shit out of him. But that's the last that ever happened. But that's the last that ever happened over that. He gave Edith a divorce. I didn't cause that problem. I had no business getting in that. My dad always said it was worth it. They were together until he died. So he had to take an ass kicking, but he ended up getting to hang on to his 20. He got the girl in the end.
How awesome is that? Blackie's like, Dad, he's bigger than me. I got nothing for you.
I know you just said, well, like, that's on you. Like, I can't. I think it was you fucked his wife.
That's
so
your thing.
That's not. I can't be like, I'll fight you. Like, no, you owe him this. Like. If you bang a guy's wife, you then, like, if he wants to fight you got to give him that. Like,
it's all in the game, baby.
That's all in the game. That's like getting kneecapped by Omar Shotgun. You guys all in the game, you know? It's what it is.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's exactly what he's like, man, Dad, it's all in the game. Your pimp game, you know, it's strong, but
you got a hot girl. If that's what you got to pay to get her, Dad, bargain.
Said it was worth it.
Sounds like half off at Nordstrom's, babe. Go get it.
Worth it, man. At least they stay. Imagine if she like left him a month later. That would have at least they stayed together.
That's
forever.
Awful. My jaw's still sore. She's walking.
And Blackie says, quote, none of that stuff changed my attitude about life or made me a worse or better person. Okay.
Except for the military didn't change your outlook.
It pissed him off.
That's crazy.
Pissed him off.
That's nuts.
This pissed him off because of the whole situation. So everything just kind of makes him a little more angry.
Okay.
So his parents are getting divorced, and he's going to get married. Mm-hmm. He marries a young lady named Nell.
Okay.
She is Nellie Ann. She's a 17-year-old at the time that he marries her. Her occupation is a domestic, listed on there.
Nothing. I do nothing.
Yeah, domestic.
Right.
I don't know. Well, yeah, that's what that meant back then.
She's a stay-at-home.
Yeah, she had
so horrible.
Which back then they had 9 kids.
Right.
That's a lot.
It's something.
That's something. I don't know if her occupation was domestic, so I don't know if that was, because back then they used to list housewife. I don't know if that meant she's a housekeeper for other people.
Oh, that's a great point.
That's what they would call a domestic back then, a maid, yeah.
A few miles from the glass spires of Midtown Atlanta lies the South River Forest. In 2021 and 2022, the woods became a home to activists from all over the country who gathered to stop the nearby construction of a massive new police training facility, nicknamed Cop City.
At approximately 9 o'clock this morning, as law enforcement was moving through various sectors of the property, an individual, without warning, shot a Georgia State Patrol trooper.
This is We Came to the Forest, a story about resistance.
The abolitionist mission isn't done until every prison is empty and shut down.
Love and fellowship.
It was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life.
And the lengths we'll go to protect the things we hold closest to our hearts. Follow We Came to the Forest on the WWII app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest early and ad-free right now by joining WWII Plus.
In the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this White Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles.
A big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud.
Sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became. It's a story of deceit.
At the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on WWII Plus. Join WWII Plus in the WWII app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
So anyway, basically Nell's birth certificate says child known as Nellie A. Eason and cites an affidavit from her stepfather. Apparently she was adopted by her stepfather because her father took off on her at some point, and her and her siblings. So anyway, she meets Blackie through Blackie's mom.
Really?
She works with Blackie's mom. somewhere. They work at the same place. And so she says, my son's a nice, tall, handsome guy. You should meet him.
Yeah.
And that's how it comes. Shit soldiers.
Oh,
ears are insane.
Soldier, yeah.
But
what's worse, having big ears or cauliflower ear?
Oh, man. Cauliflower, because at least you did something for that to earn that. There's a story behind that.
You're not
other
get
than
made
just
fun of.
Your genetics are terrible. You know? Cauliflower ears, that person can probably fight.
Yeah.
They've
making fun of it.
They've had a forearm grinding into the side of their head enough to do that
a lot.
to it. So they'll probably fuck you up.
Right.
You know, but not big ears. That's
my optometrist has cauliflower ear, and he's like checking my eyes. He goes, just look over my ear, and I wanted to ask, you really think I've missed that thing? I'm looking right at it, man.
The funniest are like
Have
adults.
a look at my ear. Okay, like
Sure.
you had to tell me.
Over there. Now, is this from something older? Or is he like one of these guys who got like 45 years old and is like, I'm going to join a jiu-jitsu gym? And then you have you're a doctor.
Yeah.
You're clearly not an athletic person, but you're walking around with a fucking cauliflower ear.
He's in his late 20s. There's no way I'm asking.
Okay. All right.
I'm afraid he'll be
I'll
like,
probably just kick your
what
ass.
about it?
Yeah. Probably just beat you up.
Yeah.
You want to get beat up by your optometrist.
I've clearly been wrestling very close to very tough men for at least 10 years.
Something.
You have more questions?
Anything else you want to know, bitch?
You don't look like you're in very good shape, sir.
No. So Nell comes from a traditional family, and she liked that his family was traditional besides the divorces and all that sort of thing. But her sister, Nell's sister, said, quote, the men brought home the bacon and the women cooked it. Yeah. And that's what she liked about the whole thing. So, sometime in about 45, Blackie ends up sending her a photo of him in his military uniform, which he's not in the military anymore. And so anyway, it's inscribed to Nellie, the most wonderful girl in the world, all my love, Rich. Like I said, he signs everything Rich. And so she thought he was cute. She thought he was cute. She thought he was, marriage worthy, I guess. So they're married by a minister in March 8th, 1946, which is 6 months after he's released from naval prison. They're both 19 at the time. His occupation is listed as a carpenter, and he lives with his parents near New Hampshire Avenue near 82nd Street. So he needs work, though.
Obviously.
So that's the thing. He's got a young wife. She expects him to bring bacon home for her to cook. So he needs to go out and have some goddamn job. But what he likes to do is he likes to hang out and carouse a lot. Because in Hollywood back then, you could just go out, and it was the Wild West. Not a lot of people lived there. If you went out to a bar in Hollywood, there'd be 5 movie stars there. That's just the way it was.
Fatty Arbuckle will walk in here.
There was nowhere else to go.
Right.
That's, it wasn't like now where there's all sorts of private things and clubs and,
You can pay a fucking bartender to come to your house.
That's what I mean. Now, back then, you went to whatever the bars were, and you went to where the shows were, because they had all these shows every night, and the showgirls and all that sort of shit. There was a lot of also moving into here. This was the era when all the gangsters started coming here as well.
Yeah.
Mickey Cohen, Bugsy Siegel, all these people started hanging out and using LA as it was wide open space.
Right.
It was like Florida in the 70s for the gangsters.
Regal.
That's what it was. So, he's so he's got this. He likes to go out. Nell is homesick. She's from Minnesota. She's homesick. Now she knows that Ralph is always out drinking and fighting and carousing and, fucking women.
Right.
At first, she was excited to have like this husband and be in Los Angeles. She was this small town girl who thought an escape from that was to get married, because that's what people did back then.
And post World War II, this is a guy that was in the military. This is like it's like Pearl Harbor, the movie.
Yeah, you come home, you collect a bride, you get married, and you move to the suburbs. That's kind of what people did back then.
Go be awesome.
Go do something. Go be boring anyway. Go sit out there and be fucking boring for the next.
Have the dream of a 3-bedroom house and the sedan in the driveway. Woo-hoo. And the chain link.
Very exciting.
It's beautiful.
Very exciting here. So, they thought she convinced him then she didn't want to stay here anymore. She thought if she moved him out of the city, he would calm down.
Yeah.
It's the city that's causing this. So she convinced him that logging was a good business.
Wow.
Logging.
Oh,
Imagine being talked into that.
How hot is she?
I was going to say, how well did she suck dick to talk a person into logging? To talk a man who doesn't like hard labor. It's not like he's a guy who does hard labor anyway. He doesn't care for it. He won't show up at the glass factory.
The military couldn't keep him straight.
No, and you're like, how about logging?
And he's like, I'll give it a shot.
And she actually was like, all right. He was like, all right, well, I guess we'll log then. So apparently she convinced him of this by her family had connections into this. And she told him, look, if we do this for 10, 15 years, we're going to be rich.
Okay.
So let's just do it. So, yeah, she said that it was in her mind, it was a better place to raise kids in a small town. They moved to Whitehorse in Modoc County, which is the far northeast woods and mountains of California.
Oh, Jesus.
Way the fuck up there and out there. So, yeah.
Damn near Idaho?
Yeah, all the way up there, exactly, by the Oregon border. So Ralph fucking hates it. Yeah. He's a city guy. He grew up in L.A. He likes to go drink at the bars on Hollywood Boulevard. He's just not a guy who wants to sit
in California.
in the woods.
I'm freezing.
Yeah, it's cold. There's no beach. This sucks.
It's raining.
He says, quote, Nell wanted me to work in the woods. There wasn't a neon sign within 50 miles. I got so tired of scamming those loggers' pay and then having to fight them. It was hard work. I couldn't handle it.
What?
He's a gambler and he's a card shark. He's been doing this since he was 13, and these guys are rubes.
Right.
So he goes in there and fucking hustles them with cards, with quarters, with all this shit, takes all their pay, and then he has to fight these guys because they're drunk loggers.
And broke now
and angry, so then he has to fight them.
Right.
So
go back home with no bacon.
No, nothing. So he's got all your bacon.
Right.
So he said, quote, I made a couple of phone calls and the Browns said they'd sign me. That is the St. Louis Browns. Yes.
Wait, what?
St. Louis Browns.
He made a couple of how do you
Yeah.
he doesn't even play baseball.
But he knew that scout. It's a long story.
Wow.
So he said, my wife didn't want anything to do with it. She hated baseball. She wanted me to stay up there. I told her, forget that. So she served me an ultimatum, either baseball or me. I came down to L.A. and signed with the Browns. Pete Peterson, who ran the team in Gardenia, asked Jack Fournier, the Browns head scout, to take a look at Blackie because he remembered him. And the guy's report, Fournier's report, was, quote, he's a screwball, but he can pitch. He's a crazy fuck. So he ends up, and recommends signing him to the Browns. That's how easy. Imagine that now.
Wow.
Now you have to play from the time you're 5, and there's like all these different leagues and different like camps you have to go to know people. And it's like, so back then you could be, I hear he can throw, and they just sign him.
He'd have to have a disability and then tweet at them and have that shit go viral for them to give him a chance at one
YouTube
day.
video of him standing on one leg hitting a 400-foot home run or something that got a million retweets.
They'll sign him for a one-day contract for $100.
Publicity.
Right.
Yeah. This was, they were looking for and every major league team had like 15 minor league teams back then.
Yeah.
Now there's like 2 or 3. Then it was 15 or 20. Every town in America had a baseball team. So they needed players to fill these teams. And the Browns were the worst team in the majors by far.
Yeah.
They were the biggest shithole organization. So they didn't get the good players. So they had to go sign what they could. He signed his contract on the fender of a car.
Oh boy.
That's old school.
Yeah.
So while he's doing this, he's in L.A., and he really likes Mickey Cohen a lot. He likes his style. Mickey Cohen is a gangster, famous gangster. He liked reading about him. He'd see him out sometimes. He liked that he wore expensive suits, and he always had like 3 beautiful women with him, and he hung out with movie stars, and he was living a glamorous life, making all the money he wanted.
Outwardly.
Yeah. Well, glamorous, definitely.
Yeah.
So Blackie looked at that, and he was like, well, Jesus, I would like to have that. What can I do here? So he does know a friend of his who kind of is in that sphere of knows some half-assed gangsters, and that's Ted Gardner, his grade school pal that he grew up with, and he hooks him up with Mickey Cohen kind of around a roundabout way here. Now, Mickey Cohen had a couple of brothers named Joe and Freddie Sika running the neighborhood for them. The Sika brothers, they were like his captains kind of. They ran the shit underneath him. So anyway, they would do all of this shit. Cohen says that he had a run-in with Fred Sika, which is the same thing as having a run-in with me. And the Sikas had been with Mickey when they robbed Jack. It was this famous thing. They robbed Jack Dragna, who was another gangster, his betting parlor. And then they shot at Mickey Cohen and cut his face up. And it was like a big broken glass cut his face up, but he survived it. And he went out that night like all fancy suit with some cuts on his face, like, hey, here I am.
Wow.
It was like a big famous thing. It was a big famous thing in the newspapers back then. So in the fall of 1945, Blackie is introduced to Mickey Cohen, and they chat for a little while, And Mickey said, I know a couple of guys that might be able to use you. A young, big guy like you, who's willing to fucking throw his weight around.
Who's a lunatic.
Yeah. They might be able to use you. It's the Sika brothers. They're the ones who do the kind of meat and potatoes collecting and, loan sharking and shit like that. So he said they could use a tall guy who's good with his fists and likes money and doesn't really have any morals. Perfect. You're perfect for us. So they hire him as a leg breaker. Basically, he's Rocky in the beginning of Rocky.
He's a muscle guy.
Going around collecting debts for bookies and loan sharks, and if people don't have the money, he beats the shit out of them. That's his game.
Easy peasy.
And he gets paid well for it. He's doing pretty well. He's doing fine. There's all sorts of his old neighborhoods and everything around here, like South Central, where Wrigley Field was, Hollywood Park Racetrack. There's tons of nightclubs, gambling parlors, brothels, all sorts of shit. So
grimy LA, the underbelly.
Yeah, he's got tons of work.
Yeah.
And breaking legs here. He says, quote, they didn't care if you worked as a carpenter or if you were a pool shark. If you owe some money, Friday night you'd better have it. I had run-ins with a couple of movie stars, happily so. I kicked their ass and got their money, but they were in big, like $35,000 or $40,000, and they deserved it.
Oh.
Back then, that was like, $1 million, $500,000.
I'd like to know who they were.
I know, I would too.
That'd be great.
No shit. I never got any satisfaction from hitting a working man for a couple $100, but he's causing it. I didn't cause it. To get worked up, I'd eat 4 or 5 whites, not egg whites, amphetamine tablets.
Oh, boy.
He'd take a
He's
bunch of
getting
speed.
methed up to go beat these people up.
All jacked up on speed.
Yep.
And start drinking black coffee.
Oh, my.
Imagine this guy. Fucking ears twitching.
Yeah.
Coming at you. He said, I could be in a blind rage by the time I got to where I was going. I always hated 4 flushers and welshers. The pay depended on how far you wanted to go, how bad they wanted them, and how much you had to hurt them. I was in it for money, clothes, lunch at the Derby or Lucia's, dinner at the Zephyr Room. Every day you'd pat your pocket. I've still got that habit. When I wake up in the morning, I put my pants on. First thing I do is pat my pocket to see if I've got any money in there. It was wonderful at the time. The high was fantastic when you woke up in the morning and hit your pocket and hey, you've got it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
He's putting pants on with money already in him.
With money already in him. That's it. Just I got something there. So he's hanging out. He's breaking legs. He's drinking. He's carousing. Now he's fighting constantly because he really has no fear. He does it for a living. He's a big tipper, so he's popular with the waitresses, popular with the bartenders, and all that sort of shit.
Sure.
So he's really making himself, a main player in the scene here. He's got all this money and he spends money. He doesn't care. He spends money like a gangster. That's what he wants to be. He's still signed for baseball, mind you, while he's doing this. So a way that this happened here when he was younger, Saturday afternoons they'd go to the park, the Manchester playground. He'd hang out with his friends. Apparently, there was a supervisor at the park that remembered when he first met Ralph. He said, we were having problems with someone breaking into the cars of the ball players. One day I noticed this big guy sitting up in the stands with a couple of other crumb bums drinking and smoking. You weren't supposed to drink alcohol in a city park. Everyone was just giving these guys a wide berth. I figured the worst they could do was shoot me, so I went up to the big guy. I always take the big guy out first. So I tell him to put away the bottle and I ask him if he knows anything about cars being broken into. I told him the ball players didn't have the time or money to put up with that kind of crap. He just laughed. He said, though, later on, his friends left and Blackie went to talk to this guy, and he said he was actually a nice guy at that point. And Blackie started talking about could he join one of the semi-pro teams that that play at the park, and so that's how he got into it, and that's how he ended up being seen by by Pete Peterson and all that sort of shit. The manager of the park there said, quote, I found out he was an awfully nice kid. He came from a pretty good background, was intelligent, and had good manners. Oh, he was a renegade and all that, but when I was working with him, he was quiet and polite. After a few days, I told him he had the chance to make something of himself in baseball, but he had to steer clear of those bums he was hanging around with. He didn't listen. We finished at the park, and he'd walk out the gate and go right back to those guys. So with the Browns, he says at one point here, this is how Pete Peterson found him. Quote, so they were getting their butts kicked and I started complaining. This was a minor league team. I had about 6 or 7 beers by then and I was yelling that I could do better than that. The guy who was running the club was a Browns bird dog, which is an unpaid scout. He gets paid by the people he finds, named Pete Peterson. He came up and told me, shut up or show him. I took my coat and tie off and went out there and walked 6 and struck out 11. After that, I played for him some, and they got the Big Scouts out from St. Louis after me.
That's awesome.
That would never happen nowadays.
Can you imagine?
I'd take my coat and tie off and come down there and strike out 11 and get signed by a team.
Sitting in the stands heckling.
Fuck out of here. That is fucking wild.
They gave a heckler a chance.
Yeah, that's what it was. And he said, quote, he had on just jeans and a T-shirt. He threw a couple and then cut loose, and Christ, that ball just exploded. I said, wait a fucking minute here, and went back to put my chest protector, mask, and shin guards on. That's the catcher. I went back to the bullpen, and this guy is just laughing at me. I tell him, okay, I'm ready for you now, you big motherfucker. Go ahead and throw it. He said, man, could he throw that ball? I had no idea who the hell he was. Turns out he was Blackie Schwamb, and he had just signed with the Browns. Nobody knew who this guy was. He just came out of nowhere. He might as well have been from the moon. So, yeah, he got a signing bonus of $600. He said, I wasn't shopping around. I didn't know that I could play well.
Yeah.
He said, quote, I didn't know that this scout for Cleveland, Johnny Angel, was really bird-dogging me. He's a little unobtrusive guy who never sat in the first row or anything, never talked to the manager. He confirmed 2 days after I signed with the Browns that Cleveland was going to give me $37,500. So he blew it, basically, is what he's saying. I should have waited. I would have signed with a better team
getting actual money.
That signed me for a fortune. And in 1948, they won the World Series.
Oh, damn it.
The Browns were awful. So he said it would have been 1,000,000% different if I had waited and signed with Cleveland. They had a good ball team. No doubt it would have taken me a lot longer to break in, but I would have. I was a lousy gangster, but I was a great pitcher.
Yeah.
Now, January 1947, he's arrested.
Uh-oh.
On suspicion of burglary, but that's only why they're only holding him on that, because he's a suspect in something much bigger than this.
Okay.
The burglary circumstances were unclear, and he was drunk enough that it ends up being that it was an honest mistake. He was known to kind of enter the wrong room sometimes and shit because he was so drunk. Anyway, the charges were dropped, quote, due to his high state of inebriation. Because rather than you're so drunk you wandered into the wrong place, that's extra bad. They went, well, I mean, he was drunk. Anybody, that could happen to anybody. I pissed in my laundry hamper last night. My wife is furious, like.
That's how everybody was drunk. So they're like, I get it.
That's what I mean.
It was that's wild.
But in actuality, the arrest instead had something to do with the Black Dahlia murder.
Oh, shit.
Yes, it was the last last 2 weeks that had been going on. Sometime between 10 p.m. on Friday, January 10th, when she was last seen, and on 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, January 15th, when her body was discovered. This was Elizabeth Short. We know the Black Dahlia thing here. Tied up, tortured, throat slit, the whole deal.
Sectioned.
We're getting to that part. Yeah, her body was carefully cut in half at the waist. Blood drained from both halves, all this type of shit. Dyed the hair bright red.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
Wait, they dyed the hair bright red?
Dyed the hair bright red, yeah, and then scrubbed the corpse clean.
And then, carved a big smile in the face.
Then dumped it in there.
Oh, boy.
The police were under intense pressure to solve this, obviously, because it was a big deal. One of the prime suspects in the case was a very tall, 6'5", thin, strong man with dark hair. It was Blackie.
Wearing a brown shirt.
Wearing a brown shirt and throwing the ball super fucking hard.
They thought it was him at first.
He was one of the suspects.
Wow.
They didn't say his name, but that was the description of Blackie. They just put that in rather than his name. Blackie was one of the 5 suspects for Black Dahlia. Turns out he was just shit-faced and wandered into the wrong place.
Yeah.
And they thought it was the guy who killed her just trying to break into something. Right. So instead.
And the Black Dahlia murders, and his name's Blackie. They've got a lot of connections to that.
Absolutely. So they let him go when they figured out he was just a drunk. But that he was one of the main suspects, though, which is pretty interesting.
They still haven't solved it, right?
Nope, still unsolved. He said, this is him, baseball was another door to things I liked, to the bright lights. The girls are the same if you play in a D League or an A League. Just come out about 11 o'clock at night after you've showered and everything and take your pick of the town belles. Just take your pick. It's easier to get a tab at a local restaurant or get a suit at the local shops. Oh, I'll pay you when I can. Can we put it in the paper that you bought your suit here? Why, certainly. So he loved it.
That's the 90s equivalent of when you're a star, they let you just kiss.
Yeah, they let you do things to them. Well, it's the equivalent of, can I have that for free and I'll fucking post it on my Instagram because I'm an influencer? It's that bullshit. Swear to God, I would punch someone in the throat if they fucking asked me for anything because they're an influencer. I go, I'll influence the way you breathe, motherfucker, by punching in your Adam's apple.
How about you influence the way I pay my bills by buying this from me?
Fucking ridiculous. So anyway, he showed up for a game shit-faced drunk at one point. He was so wasted that he was barred from entering the ballpark.
Oh boy.
They wouldn't even let him in. So that made him pissed off. So what he did was, there was a flagpole out behind the center field fence. So he climbed his way up the flagpole, perched himself up there, and hurled abuse at the players, umpires, and fans from up there.
He climbed a flagpole and heckled people.
And heckled everybody. And so finally the police had to come, drag him down, and throw him in jail. He was suspended there.
Can you imagine?
Oh, my God.
Pull at your job and just heckle your coworkers.
You motherfuckers! You pussy! Why are you watching these pussies play? You fucking nice call, ump, you blind motherfucker. Picture him up there just screaming. So he's in the Texas League, Arizona Texas League at one point, playing for Globe, and Billy Martin was on the team.
Really?
The famous Yankee manager, player, and shit starter extraordinaire.
Played for Globe.
Oh, yeah, he played there too. So apparently there was a giant fight. A big Billy Martin caused a melee, which is, you know, what Billy Martin does. Yeah. He did it at the Copacabana famously. Well, he also did it on a field in Globe at one point. So bad that both teams and the fans got into it, and it was a monstrous brawl. The police had to come and shoot tear gas bombs in the infield to disperse everybody.
In the 40s in Globe.
In the 40s in Globe. And then they had to, once that all dispersed, they continued the game, which is fucking amazing. So that's when he came down to Phoenix and, you know, did all that. But he was in jail, so he didn't get to be there.
That's why.
Blackie said he was pissed he didn't get involved in that.
God damn it.
Because he was in jail. So anyway, he gets in a lot of fights. There's one time, he always tells stories of his fights, even the ones he lost. And one particular time, he says that he was he was telling this to the supervisor of the Manchester playground there, and the guy recalls it as saying, quote, Ralph is in a bar drinking. He gets pushed from behind and turns around, and it's this little old guy. So he turns back to the bar, and then it happens again. This time, Ralph turns around ready to throw a punch, and all of a sudden he's on the floor. So he jumps up, and down he goes again. This happens a couple more times before Ralph just decides he better stay on the deck.
Yeah. Who is this old guy?
He said the bartender's laughing and finally says to Ralph, that's Fidel Labarra, the world champ.
Right.
So
he's a boxer.
He's a world champion boxer. He'd been a flyweight champion in 1927. He was only 42 at this point, too, so he wasn't an old man. He's only 5'3", though.
Oh.
And, you know, fucking weighs 140 pounds, but he's a professional boxer.
He knows
so
where the button is.
Up. Yeah. So he did, and he said,
dropping guys 6'5" at the bar.
He said Blackie told that story wherever he could because he thought it was the funniest thing in the world. He'd tell people, quote, I'm not so tough. I got knocked out by a little old man who weighed 120 pounds. So, he's not a little old man. He's 42 and he's the heavyweight. He was the flyweight champ of the world. Right. So maybe not quite so little. Anyway, so spring training, he's going to be playing in South Dakota, but spring training is in Arkansas for the Browns, but he's going to be in the minor league team in South Dakota. They end up showing up there. They're going to pay him $250 a month, but that's enough to get an apartment. And he's got a 4-month-old son named what?
Yep, Junior.
Rich.
Yeah,
Rich.
Oh,
he calls him Rich, but his name's Ralph Rich Jr. So they said, that's enough money to get an apartment in South Dakota where you're going to live. And he said, nope, left him in L.A. Don't need her here. That really puts a cramp in my style.
I'm trying to get pussy.
Yeah, he said he told Nell he might be moving around from team to team and would certainly be on the road much of the time, and that they'd be better off staying put where she had family and friends nearby.
It'll be no fun for you watching me fuck all these people.
Not at all, but he really didn't want to cramp the style. Yeah. And with that said, let's let Blackie tell something here. Let's get in their own old-timey words. Quote, baseball was just another of the things I liked. And what do you say here? Oh shit, I'm sorry. This is not a quote from him. We're going to have to do that another time. Old-timey words coming up, so I just screwed that up completely. So in Arkansas, I was like, wait, I had it on the wrong thing. Arkansas, he says, spring training was held at an old naval air training station on the edge of town. The playing fields were laid out between abandoned runways, and war veterans shared the creaky old wooden barracks with ball players. Oh, boy. It's weird. The Browns minor league pitching coach was known for working his players hard. Every day he'd run them through the very soft plowed dirt on the fields nearby, and some of them dropped from exhaustion.
Holy shit.
It's your pitching. You don't need to be in that kind of shape to pitch.
What are we doing here?
That's wild. They said that Blackie was like the least experienced guy in training camp. He's played barely like some sandlot ball.
He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember the last time he played.
He was the tallest, though, out of 300 people. They said he didn't even know how to put his uniform on. He didn't know what it was. He'd always played ball in jeans and T-shirts, so he didn't know how to put the uniform on. He was especially confused by the stirrups, the sanitaries they call them, the stirrups.
To go inside the
He didn't
shoe.
know how you did that, so he had to get a guy to help him. Like, what the fuck is this thing? How do I do that? Which is super weird. Now, they said that Roy Sievers, who was an outfielder there, he said that you got a number when you arrived. This was your number, like prison. And every day after breakfast, you'd go over to the big board to find out where you were supposed to work out that day, or if you'd been cut from the team, or, shit like that. Or if you were going to play in a scrimmage that night, an exhibition. He remembers as a lot of it was just a pain in the ass. He said Blackie was known for being something of a cut-up. One time he looked up the chimney of a fireplace, turned around grinning, and told us all that he'd see us on the 25th.
You gotta go.
Just a weird guy. Yeah, just a weird son of a bitch. He just partied in Arkansas, basically. Around there, he found some honky tonks, found some shit like that he could hang out at, and he did. And liquor stores and brothels and everything else. He was just a man about town right away. Now, he said that they wanted him to be. Somebody tried to get him to throw like underhand, which is weird, and he didn't want to throw like sidearm. So he plays for Globe Miami. He has a 4.15 ERA for them, a 1.62 ERA for Aberdeen, which is pretty good here. The Aberdeen Pheasants of the Northern League, which is
Oregon, right?
It's
Washington.
It's South Dakota. So apparently this was Chinese ringneck pheasant up there. That's why everything's pheasant. And that's like all there was there to eat. Even he said, he said they had everything. You ate pickled pheasant. Like they ate pheasant in every fucking way.
Yuck.
Yeah, it was rough. And also it was boring up there for him. He kind of had a hard time. He had a hard time long bus trips up there through the fucking bumpy roads, and it was cold up there, and he just didn't like it, basically.
And what's the reward after that long bus ride? More pheasant.
Yay. So he just hated it, man. So September 47, he had gotten suspended, and they reinstated him at that point. His coach said that he didn't care much for his alcoholic excesses, Blackie's. Said he had a nasty habit of disappearing for all the days in between games in which he'd appeared. He's supposed to pitch every fourth game. He'd just not show up.
Take off for 3 days.
Yeah, he said and the games he'd show up scruffy and hungover. So the manager told him he's good enough to make it to the majors, but not if he was a bad influence on the team. They're not going to take him. They said if he doesn't straighten up, they're going to get rid of him, no matter how well he pitches. It doesn't matter. So he ends up pitching down there. He's still a bad influence. They still keep him around because minor league managers can't cut anybody.
Really?
No, they don't have the fucking power to do that. They don't know who's going to be on their team today.
They don't make the roster. They don't
do shit.
Told what to do.
No, not if it's a major league team's minor league team.
Yeah.
They move guys around, and you just go, what do I have today?
Right.
I better put that out on the field. So they were shit fields too, and he just he hated it. And at one point on one of these shit fields, bumpy divots and shit like that, he was working out, took a wrong step, and fucked up the ligaments in his ankle.
Oh no.
So he was put on the disabled list and was out for 2 months.
Yeah.
And that was after he came back from being suspended. So it was bad here. So he, scouts had been comparing him to like big time pitchers in the major leagues because he can throw like a son of a bitch. He's really has an amazing fastball. He's natural overhand, sometimes a little 3/4-y, but it's pretty good here. So he said sometime during his stay in Aberdeen, he met a woman named Pat and fell for her.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they started an affair. Not secretive at all.
No.
Just walk around with her. It's normal for ball players to have affairs back then.
Sure.
And even like when we did Mel Hall,
yeah,
they all had different rooms for different ones,
right.
and that's how it worked. Yeah, it is. Even married women, that happens. But the problem was it was a small town, and Pat was in high school.
Oh, no. What?
She's a senior and is just 16 years old. And she had 2 older brothers that were very protective of her. So...
And he's in his 20s.
He's in his 20s, and he's a fucking... this guy's not a reputable guy here.
Bit of a loser.
Yeah. So anyway, finally, the manager begged the team to the Browns to take this pitcher and bring him anywhere else but here. And that's when he ended up in Globe, Miami, playing there. So Blackie said, quote, "The league was the burial ground for all the lushes who couldn't make it. I got on the train and went home after a while being with Miami Globe or whatever the fuck it was." So, yeah, this is ridiculous, man. He finally, by the way, there's a little anecdote here because he's going to make it to the majors eventually here. In 1948, he gets in Yankee Stadium and he's going to pitch in Yankee Stadium. So they check, the announcer says, "What's the guy's first name? I don't know this guy. What's his first name?" And so nobody knew. They didn't know his first name. So finally, they called down to the Browns bench and said, "Hey, what's the player who's coming in? What do I call him?" And the manager said, quote, "Just call him Dizzy. That's what we call him." So they announced him as Dizzy Schwamb pitching for the Browns, and he fucking hated it. He got so Dizzy was what you call a dumb guy back then. Dizzy Dean was like a crazy weirdo. So he hated that shit. He didn't like being called Dizzy, and he didn't like when you made fun of his ears. Anything else was fine.
And they announced him as that.
They announced him as that in Yankee Stadium. Not just announced him as that over at the DMV at Yankee Stadium. So crazy. His debut in the majors was July 25th, 1948. This has to be our latest ever going into sports here. And he only pitches here for 1 year. His debut, he pitched 6.1 innings, 7 hits, 3 strikeouts, no walks, and 2 earned runs. Promising. Yeah. That's called a quality start right there.
Yankee Stadium.
No, that was versus Washington. They sucked. So it was the Browns and Washington. It was 2 shit teams. So 1948, the Browns are 59-94. And they suck. They really, really suck. He's not well loved on the team. No, we'll put it that way. A guy named Chuck Stevens, who's the first baseman, he said that Blackie was, quote, spooky. I don't know what that means. I guess I'd consider him a street kid, and I think everybody else on the club felt the same way. I don't think anybody warmed up to him. There was just something different that everybody backed off. This guy listened to a different drummer. We didn't trust him. You're not going to volunteer for cancer.
Jesus.
Wow. Okay.
He hates him.
Well, he goes on. He created his own problems. He said he wasn't ready. He shouldn't have been there. You have to get along, especially as a rookie. Instead, he seemed to go out of his way to stir up trouble, to break the rules. A lot of the older guys resented him. Frankly, he was a cancer on that team. Wow.
He's spooky. And then every sentence after that is like trying to lead you to how much of a piece of shit he really is.
So
and then the last one, nobody signs up for cancer.
Nobody signs up for this idiot. Another guy named Ned Garver said, quote, he'd be out all night. He wouldn't come in until we'd be up in the morning. I don't know too many guys who abused themselves like he did. Fred Sanford, in taking a break from his junk business, he had a little something here that he was going to do. He said, the thing that bothered me the most about Ralph was that he just couldn't relax and be one of the guys. He acted like a tough guy, but when players started to get on him and razz him, the usual stuff you hear as a player, he couldn't handle it. We'd call him things like ears or Dumbo. He had big ears, and ball players, being ball players, picked on that.
And he's wearing a hat.
Making it worse.
Accentuate your ears. Yeah. Put a hat on.
Put a big hat on. He said it's not very clever, but it's something that you just have to laugh off.
Yeah.
He didn't like being called Blackie or Dizzy either. So then he'd run up to general manager and owner Bill DeWitt's office and rat on us. Now you don't do that now you do that and you're going to have problems with your teammates. He drove just about everyone crazy. Then Joe Schultz, who's the future manager of the Seattle Pilots in their only season of existence. He's all in that Ball 4 book. They talk about him. He says, quote, the Browns screwed him up. That happened a lot back then. Nowadays, a guy like that would be worth the mint. He would get the right kind of coaching and they'd ship him off to rehab, get him a personal head doctor or whatever it takes. Yeah. Back then, they were just like, I don't know, show up not so drunk, please. That was it. So, he said that when they were, Jesus Christ, The Browns here, he says, a teammate says of his, usually on the way to Burbank, I'd have to stop the car a couple times for him to puke. A lovely way to spend the morning. I was just a glorified babysitter. It pissed me off because I was trying to establish myself with the Browns, and I sure as hell didn't need for anyone to think I was some sort of pal of this guy. He says he was scary. One morning I picked him up, and he's actually where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and I figure this is going to be okay. So we're motoring along, and we stop at a traffic light, and there's a gas station just opening for business. Ralph says, we could knock that place off in about 30 seconds and get back on the road and get to Burbank, and nobody would ever catch us. For Christ's sake, I'm thinking, is this guy kidding? I'm not so sure that he was. He was casing the joint. For this, I signed with the Browns? They're on their way to their professional baseball job.
We could rob that place.
They just robbed that place. Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, we could.
He said that he just lived a different kind of lifestyle.
What the fuck?
He remembers going into the locker room and standing next to Ralph at a urinal. He looked down and was horrified to see that Ralph was pissing blood.
Oh, good Lord.
He said, quote, that scared me to death. I was just a farm boy from Ohio. I had never seen anything like that before. That's just his lifestyle.
That right there's a good place to take your grandmother's advice and mind your own fucking business.
Fucking bonkers.
Don't look at that. Why is he looking at it, James?
Just glance, I guess, bright red and a white urinal. Like, whoa, hey, what's that about here?
Is that piss? Is that blood? What is that?
Yeah, he is goddamn terrible this year. He goes 1-8. It's not good. It's a bad year for the Browns here. Also, he hits 300, though, so that's something.
What?
He's a good hitter.
That's awesome.
He's a really good hitter.
Yeah.
A lot of times pitchers were good hitters once in a while back then, but he was a damn fine hitter. In the minors one time, his shortstop got hurt and he filled in at shortstop. He's like, I'll try it. I'll do it. I can hit. So Cleveland Indians win the World Series in 1948, like we said, that he could have been on. 1949 here comes along. January 1949. Okay, that season's over. Basically, oh boy, this is interesting. He picture a car pulling up to a motel next to a gas station on the corner of Figueroa and the Imperial Highway.
Oh my God.
Okay,
such a busy place now.
Now, back then, quote, it was no more than a dozen tiny rundown wood shack rooms strung along a driveway with a small 2-room office just 3 or 4 feet back from the curb.
Okay,
so it's like a little hotel bungalow type thing. So it didn't look like anybody important or big would stay there or anybody with any money. But Blackie ends up trying to rob the place, basically. It's a guy named Edwin Cohen. He's the desk clerk. Blackie pulled out a Luger and pointed at this guy and told him to empty out the cash drawer and hand it over to him, there, and also throw your watch in there while you're at it. Mm-hmm. So the guy, they ended up pocketing $9 from the cash drawer. So there's a small bedroom behind the office. Blackie ends up marching this Cohen into it, telling him to lie face down on the bed. He told his partner to watch the clerk and not let him get up. So this guy, his partner, put his foot on Cohen's neck, and Blackie searched the rest of the room. He found $30 and a woman's ring in the bedside drawer. And so one of the two guys, we don't find out who, kicked this Edwin Cohen in the head before they got out of there. So they ended up running out of gas a few miles away.
Okay.
They tried to take a streetcar, but people knew that he did this shit. His partner ended up getting home very late, and his wife was angry at him, so he gave her $9 and told her that he'd been setting up pins in a bowling alley all night for $9, and she didn't believe him. So the next day, Ralph sold the watch and ring to a neighbor, and the police traced Blackie through the ring and arrested him on September 15th for this of the year later on. They searched his apartment. They found the gun. They found his fucking partner there. They were charged with not only that one, also the El Capitan Hotel a few days before, and a liquor store on Central Avenue. They'd also robbed. Just a few dollars from each, by the way.
The El Capitan, is that where the studio is on Hollywood Boulevard now?
I think probably, yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel studio.
Yeah, I think over by there. Yeah, they robbed that. Got a few dollars out of it.
Holy shit.
At gunpoint. So they set bail at $2,500. The judge, the district attorney, wanted $5,000, but they ended up getting $2,500, which was more money than they could scrape together. So he sat in jail for a week, and his wife thought that maybe sitting in jail for a week would be good for him. He could dry out for a week if he sobered up. Yeah, but he insisted that she get him out, so she pawned some belongings, and some of Blackie's old neighborhood baseball buddies chipped in, and they raised $250 for the bail bondsman, and that's how that worked. He said, quote, "I was getting so paranoid by then I'd do anything for $1. I wasn't even looking for work." Not honest work. He's looking for whatever. So he got another gun because he's going to need that. And he decides, fuck. I'm almost, I got a major league career going on here. Things are going well. I'm married. I got a kid named after me, obviously. I'm an up-and-comer.
Yeah.
I'm 20. He's like 22 years old.
Unbelievable.
He seems like he's 50 in the story, right? He's 22.
He's been in and out of jail for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Every NFL player we've talked about, they're not even in the NFL yet at this point. They're still in college. This guy, and he says, you know what I need to do? I'm going to get another gun, and I'm going to go, and I'm sure there's motels, gas stations, liquor stores, private card games. He goes on a robbery spree.
Bottom of the rung stuff.
Everything. Yeah. Crackhead shit, basically.
$9 at a time.
He took all the jobs he could get from Cohen and the Sika brothers as well. He just fucking did havoc. Just anything he can. He's breaking legs. He's sticking up liquor stores. He's crazy. And he doesn't have a car, so most of the crimes he's committed are like New Jack when he fucking took his bike to rob that. They're just shit around his house. He's the only 6'5" guy with big goofy ears in the whole goddamn neighborhood, so it's not hard to find him.
Living like DMX.
Yeah. Well, while this is going on, he played baseball that year. He did rob that shit. They didn't arrest him till September.
Unbelievable.
In the summer, he played baseball. He played with the Little Rock Travelers of the Tigers organization in AA. On that team, by the way, was a guy named Duke Doolittle. Just a wild name. He played for 15 years and never made it past AA.
Duke did?
Yeah, Duke Doolittle.
The poor bastard.
Weird. That's just weird guys.
He did little.
Do very little. He's cut but signed by the Sherbrooke Athletics of the Independent League. September of 1949, like we said, is when he's arrested for the motel robbery and is released on bond. So October 12th, 1949, he's hanging out with Ted Gardner, who's his buddy.
And a piece of shit.
And he's a piece of shit. He's an underground piece of shit. He's hanging out with him, or they're not hanging out, but his buddy is hanging out at a gambling house, basically. Like a open to the public.
Right.
Cushy, swanky gambling house, not some basement.
Got it.
So there's a guy named Dr. Donald Buge. Okay, he's a doctor. And he takes Wednesdays off usually. He's got a general practice in Long Beach. And, him and his wife Violet on Wednesdays would go, they'd go out to the races, or they go to a card club, or they'd go out to dinner and get some drinks. They're not like, they don't bet thousands of dollars, but they like putting a couple bucks down.
Sure.
Just fun for them.
A little thrill.
And then he's a doctor. He can afford it, so who cares? He's a 44-year-old guy, known as a very friendly guy, happy guy. Everybody likes Dr. Buge. Now, he has a very good practice, too, and he tips well. He's known as a big tipper. He's known as a guy who's got money and, isn't afraid to spread it around. So, he'd been married to his wife for 11 years. They had no children. And he graduated from Northwestern University in 1929. And then he ended up being in the service, doing the Naval Medical Corps.
Living a legit dream.
Oh, yeah. He was the lieutenant commander lieutenant commander of the Naval Medical Corps. He did really well. Once he got out, he's got a nice, thriving practice and, hanging out with his wife. So
living in Long Beach.
He's living a great life.
Yeah.
Just a great life. So they went to the races that day. They had a good day at the races. They won some money. They came out about $40 ahead.
Awesome.
Which back then's a good take. You can go out and hang out all night on that. So they're making their way home to Long Beach when they passed the Normandy Card Club, and Violet felt like playing some poker. Like, hey, we're up $40. Who cares? Let's go, whatever. So he said, yeah, sounds like good. Sounds like a good time. He didn't want to play cards, but he felt like going in there, and he was like, man, I'll hang out, have some cocktails. It's a swanky little environment. Maybe we'll see some movie stars.
Yeah.
Why not? So, and it's a poker palace, they call it. So anyway, they're there. Ted and Joyce Gardner are also there. Joyce is Ted's wife. Mm-hmm. She's 24. She's a redhead, considered very hot.
Hell yeah.
And all of his friends, Ted's friends, tell Ted that he should keep an eye on her because she looks at every guy in the place and even the showgirls.
Right.
So she wants to fuck everybody.
Awesome.
I'd watch out for her. So they have kids. Anyway, they decided to stop for a drink in the place when they saw Dr. Buge walk in. Okay. Now, they had known each other somehow, maybe through card places or something, but they started talking, Ted and the doctor. And that sort of shit. So Ted noticed that the doctor had been drinking, and basically the doctor liked to gamble, and he knows he had money on him and sort of that sort of thing. Ted's wife Joyce said about the doctor, he was such a pleasant man, laughing and buying drinks. He seemed so happy. So after a couple drinks, Ted asked the doctor to come along with them to meet a friend.
Yeah.
Come meet a friend of mine. So he says, sure. The doctor goes along with him. He goes and tells his wife, I'll be back soon. He said, quote, I just met a nice young married couple and I'm going to go have a drink with them. Talking to them. So she said, great. She's playing cards, so she doesn't give a shit what he does. Right. I'm gambling. Go away, honey. Yeah. Fuck you.
Yeah.
So
I just lost. It's all because of you. Fucking leave.
She was up $8 and didn't want to leave her game. Yeah, literally $8.
Can't blame her.
So basically, Ted and Joyce got in their car and they waited. The doctor got into the front seat. It was only a 10-minute drive to where they went to another place to meet Ralph. This is where they meet Blackie, okay? 4 of them ordered drinks while the doctor talked with the wife, Joyce, and either Ted or Blackie took Blackie aside, to tell him that the doctor had money. And Blackie asked if Ted thought that, does he really think he's got money? And he goes, yeah, he's definitely got money. He's a fucking mark. We should stick him up, or, we could tell him that he owes debt to a bookie or something and jack him up that way, but we can get some money out of this guy. So anyway, that's the plan. So they have another drink. They watch a little bit of TV, 1949 TV. Yeesh. And then Blackie and Ted suggested they go somewhere else or, something like that. So what ends up happening is they get in the car. Blackie gets into the back seat of Ted's car and he lays down. He's very drunk, so, he's laying down here. Joyce is in the middle. The 3 of them are in the front seat. Blackie's laying down in the back.
He's 6'5".
He's 6'5".
Right.
So, Ted stops the car under a large oak tree at the corner of a vacant lot at 124th Street and Menlo Avenue. This was apparently like a make-out point. This was like where Kanicki fingered Rizzo up there in the hill, where the park and shit. That's what this was. So there's nothing out there really at this point. Basically, it's just there's oil fields in the distance that have been kind of taken away, and now they're going to build houses there. So developers are starting that thing. So Blackie pops his head up from the back seat and told Ted to pull over. He told the doctor to get out of the car, and he refused, the doctor. So Blackie got out, opened the front passenger door, and dragged him out of the car. He was a lot bigger than the doctor and 20 years younger than him. So at this point, Ralph, Ted, and Joyce all have about the same story up till that point. But then later, things start to, unravel here. This is Blackie's version of it. He says, Ted's wife got all the trouble started. This doctor was fooling around with her in the front seat. I was laying down in the back seat drunk, and Ted's telling him, hey man, knock that shit off. So I tell him, stop the car. I tell the doctor, get out, and I pull him out and shoved him up against a tree and knocked him down. Joyce ran down the street screaming, and I ran after her. When I came back, I got her in the car. The doctor was laying face up, and I remember clearly that when I hit him, he fell down, spread-eagled flat on his face. I remember that clearly. But when I came back with Joyce, he was laying face up, all spread out with his pockets inside out and his coat pulled open. Ted rolled him and had done a number on him, either kicking him or punching him. His face was a mess. I didn't think anything about it except to get out of there. So that's his story.
Yeah. Later,
when he talks to the author, he has a few different versions of it. Joyce said, completely different, that we were having fun. And he said Blackie and the doctor started fighting, and Ted said that he cracked the doctor a couple of times to help out. The doctor went down, and, quote, Blackie put the boots to him. That's what he says. So
she says.
That's what she says. Yeah. That's what Ted says after
really?
that. It was her and then Ted also. According to Ted, Blackie then said, let's get out of here. And Ted said, should we turn the lights off so the doctor doesn't see the license plate number? And Blackie said, quote, I don't think he will. I gave him some good ones. So I would say he was given some good ones because his body was found there the next morning.
God, he died there.
He died.
Wow.
Yeah, the guy died. He was reported missing shortly after that, and people saw him lying on the side of the road. He was just on the side of the road.
Hands and shoes.
Hands and shoes, man.
Ouch.
That's it. So he was beaten. It's fucking awful. So the autopsy reveals that he died as a result of aspirated hemorrhage. Blood from his shattered jaw and nose clogged his windpipe,
Wow.
and he drowned in it, basically.
In his sleep.
In his blood.
Out.
Yeah, exactly. So they had a funeral for him and everything like that. He's got no kids, but stepdaughter and shit like that, and lots of family. So Miss Joyce Gardner here, she basically, things get tracked down through the cops, and who knows who the fuck they bribed or beat to get stories out of them back then. But a mailman recognized the description of them, and because Joyce has bright red hair, and it stands out. So the postman recognized the description of Ted and Joyce and called the police and said that might be them in this house over here on my route. So basically, the police showed up. They denied it. The couple, the Gardners, denied it, but the police noticed that his knuckles were all scraped up, and he looked like he'd just been in a fight. So the detectives told him to, we're going to talk to you a little more. And then they search in there, and they hadn't washed their clothes yet, and they found a shirt with blood all over it. Yeah. That turned out to be the doctor's, and they found the doctor's wallet in a dumpster out back.
Hard to argue with these facts.
Yeah. So they took her into custody. They take him into custody. They arrest Ted. Blackie's still on the run, though. Mm-hmm. The whole thing, though, turns out that they were just robbing him. If there was a past, that wasn't why they killed him. They just wanted to rob him and take his money. They thought he had money, and they wanted to rob him.
Accidentally murdered him.
They just beat him too hard, and he died. That's how it worked here.
What the fuck, man?
That's it. So they went in there. They found him. They found the wallet. Mm-hmm. They end up... both the Gardners confess to the whole thing, and then they got to find Blackie here. Joyce was really the one who cracked it. Joyce gave it up first.
Well, yeah.
And then they went to Ted with all the facts, and he was like, okay, fine. Fine. So a witness who saw the whole thing said that basically that Blackie and the doctor started fighting, and Ted hit the guy, and that's how it works. That's what Ted told this guy. So they get arrested, Blackie and Ted, and they're in their cells in different jails, and they're blaming each other, obviously. Ralph says here, Blackie says, quote, "We were both pretty drunk and we got the idea of robbing him. The doctor, who I thought was an insurance man, didn't resist, and Ted slugged him with his fists first, and the doctor fell to the ground." And then he said he never even hit him. And that's what he said to the press afterwards. I didn't even hit him. Then 40 years later, he said he beat the shit out of him, and then he has a lot of different stories for this. Then he says later on, quote, "I never meant to kill the guy. I never even meant to rob him. I was drunk and out of work, and when Blackie suggested we clip him for his purse, it sounded like a pretty good idea." Oh, God. Yeah. So Teddy Gardner here, he's going to jail. He said that they were very high. You know how much money they got from him?
$40.
$53.
That's not enough.
25. No. 25 for one and 28 for the other.
It's ugly.
28. Well, actually, Blackie got 28 in cash. Mm-hmm. Teddy got 25, and the wallet, which they assumed was worth $3. That's the way they did.
And he threw it away anyway.
And he threw it in the fucking dumpster, which was... He could have thrown it in one not behind his house, maybe. Hey, if you're going to dispose of shit to cover up a murder, don't do it around your house.
Especially not in your dumpster.
Stupid, yeah. Go to an apartment complex across the city and throw it out where no one will ever... behind your house.
Find a strip mall.
Plausible fucking deniability. Jesus Christ. My God. So, they basically go back and forth blaming each other more. Like, Teddy's story is that it was mostly Blackie. Obviously. Blackie's story is it's mostly Teddy. So... that's kind of how they did it. Now, Ted says that, quote, Blackie and the doctor started fighting, and he said that when they left, the doctor was alive. They did not kill him. Everybody says doctor was alive and breathing when we left. So we figured he'd had enough, and we left, and he'd be fine. But obviously he's not.
Right.
For this... they're arrested for first-degree murder, and they could get the gas chamber for this.
Wow.
We could get our first gas-chambered crime and sports person here. That's fucking crazy, the gas chamber. It is crazy, but not as crazy as the sales, Jimmy. The sales. Head on down to, if you happen to be around in 1949, head on down to C.E. Williams at 6th and Franklin, and we give Eagle stamps.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that is. Let's see. There's a whole hand holding up Eagle stamps. Our Christmas present for our customers. 3 instead of the usual 1. Triple savings on any purchase in our store. Holy shit.
Are they like coupons?
I guess. Men's slipper specials. $4.45. Oh boy. Women's princess comfort special. Some shoe. $5. Not bad.
Amazon prices.
Here's one. If you're thinking of a television Christmas, remember, even Santa Claus believes in months. That's the name of the store. Or you can get 1949 televisions.
Yeah.
Let's see this. The 154 square inch model.
What is it? 50, it's like 15 by 4.
100 and what
is that?
Fuck is that? I don't fucking
12
know.
by 12 is 144?
I don't know what
it's
the hell
not.
It's 94 square, but that one is. Let's see here. I have to do the inflation calculator. That TV is $299.50 in 1949.
That's ridiculous.
I have to look up what that is.
12
That
grand.
is $3,270 nowadays. That is so expensive for a tiny little TV. You can get a 63 square inch TV even too. That's only $169.
What is that?
I don't know.
That's smaller than 9 by 9.
It's so back then it was just that little thing in the middle, and this was the 40s. Like people didn't have TV. This was a big deal. Like only wealthy people had TVs. Like TVs were in like bars back then. 49. Very few people had them in their homes.
And the screen rolled.
And the screen rolled. And there was only a couple of like cities where that had shows. And like, if you lived in a rural area, you just couldn't get anything. So this was, they say, one knob picture control, UHF adaptable months tuner built in, all channel antenna, eye saver black picture tube.
It's a black and white TV.
That's what it is.
Gross.
October 15th, 1949. Now, this October 12th was when that happened. By the 15th, he's arrested and going away for murder.
3 days.
The sports section has an article, player suspended for breaking training. Or murder. You can take your pick. It says Ralph Schwamb, a right-handed pitcher, blah, 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 blah. He spent most of his time in spring training, medical treatment. After winning 2 games, he again broke spring training and was suspended. He's been placed on the voluntarily retired list. They don't mention he's been arrested for murder.
Right.
Not even a fucking mention of it. So at his trial in December 1949, which is fucking interesting, they had the owner of the nightclub who testified he saw Blackie and Gardner with the doctor on that fatal evening. He said that Gardner introduced him to the doctor a short time before that. Miss Gardner, obviously, Joyce testifies, and she testifies, quote, after a couple drinks, we all got into the car and drove out to the 124th Street and Menlo. Suddenly, Blackie grabbed the doctor's arm and pulled him out of the car. I begged Ted not to do anything. I said, Ted, darling, please. I begged Ted not to do anything, and he said, get away from me, you stupid broad.
Right.
He gave me the back of his hand.
He had to get out of the car and walk all the way around. You know what I mean?
Son of a bitch.
My God.
He said, she says, quote, then I got hysterical and jumped out of the car, which was just the term you used if a woman was upset back. She's hysterical. Someone slapped that lady.
She raised her voice.
She needs someone backhand her. Help that woman with the back of your hand, please.
Either slap her or hand her a dildo.
Fuck, one of the two. I really don't know what happened, she says. So other people know what happened, and Teddy testifies against him as well, and says, it was all him. He put the boots to him and all that kind of shit. Witness Joyce also says that she overheard Blackie asking Ted if the doctor had any money, and heard Ted say, I don't know, but we'll find out.
Oh boy.
So that was like a planning of a robbery, which is bad.
That's the last.
Not good.
That's the last thing I said before my hand blew up. I don't know, but I'll find out.
I
literally said that. My sister said, what is it? I don't know, but I'll find out. And then my hand blew up.
And then you found out, really.
It's not a good thing to say.
I don't know, but I'll let the doctor tell me later when I'm fucking cauterizing my goddamn fucking open wound.
Never say the phrase. It's always bad.
It is. So she says that, quote, Schwamb said, stop here, this is good enough. And then Teddy says later on when he testifies, my wife asked me why I was stopping, but I didn't answer. The doctor said, what's this? And Blackie opened the door and shoved the doctor out and followed him out of the car. So, yeah, the thing with the wife that's only in Blackie's statement to the press after he gets arrested. It never fucking comes up again.
As a guy that's riding in a car with 2 dudes you barely know and a chick, are you going to really try to finger her?
That's what I mean. One of the guy's wives.
That's crazy.
Especially if they're like kind of like shady characters.
And this guy's 6'5" and he's behind me.
And you're a 44-year-old doctor.
Right.
Like, I don't care how drunk you are.
That's my finger on this woman? No.
Yeah. So Teddy admits, he says, when they got out of the car, they appeared to be fighting. So I got out and struck the doctor twice to help Blackie. So he says, that's all. I wasn't trying to kill him. I was just trying to help him in the middle of this fight. And then, like we said, wife ran down the street. Joyce runs around fucking screaming and going. Blackie testifies. He says, never hit that guy. I never kicked him. I never touched him except to roll his body over and take his wallet. Then Ted and I divided the money. I was drunk. I didn't know what it was all about. Ted said to me, this guy is an insurance man, so he's got lots of money on him. So let's get him. I said, okay, and we did. Gardner hit him 5 or 6 times, but I never got out of the car till it was all over. So, yeah, no. He says that when I saw the doctor lying on the ground groaning, all that went through my mind was to take his wallet and go get more drinks. So that's what he said. I was so drunk, I don't even know what was going on. Tested highly intoxicated, very little memory of what happened.
Wow. Alcohol was the meth of its day. I had no idea. I just needed another fix.
I needed something, and I was pushing toward it, but that was you can't use that as an excuse now. That'll be, like I said, an extra.
Right.
Oh, and you did it for meth? Well, that's an extra thing.
You can't even handle your booze?
Now it's back then, they're like, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been that fucking hammered. So, Blackie also said that Gardner couldn't have inflicted this beating suffered by the doctor, and added that somebody else must have gotten to him after we left. So he says, we left him alive. He was fine.
Right.
We drove away. Then someone else saw a man lying on the side of the road, stopped and finished him off. Stopped and said, I'm going to kick this. Look, hey, there's a guy to kick. Let's kick this guy. He looks unconscious. Let's kick him a whole bunch, maybe. What do you think?
Some random guy that just finishes people off.
He just shows up and he's like, yes. And he gets back in his car and drives away. He's got like 8 fatalities in his life. He just drives around. Finish him. That's his job. He knows when someone's on their fucking dying breath.
The guy with his pockets out.
Sucks the soul out of him.
Jacket's open. Raiden's out there just eating people alive.
That's it. Alive. Fucking taking their souls down.
Scorpions out there just yanking skulls off of people.
It's fucking interesting. So that's his story, and he's sticking to it.
Right.
So December 21st, 1949 is the verdict. The jury deliberates for an hour and a half, and they come back with a guilty verdict of murder in the first degree. And that is also, Ted is also going to be guilty of murder. He pleads guilty to murder and then testifies against Blackie.
Oh, that's shitty.
That's how that worked. Joyce, released. Nothing.
She was
Nothing.
hysterical, Jay.
Yeah, she's hysterical. Back then, you could be a woman in the middle of a murder, and they would just be like, "Well, I mean, she's a broad. What's she supposed to do?" You weren't even getting. Nowadays, she's life in prison right with them,
Absolutely.
accomplice to the whole thing. She's right there with them.
Look what they did to a man. Imagine what they would have done to her.
Oh, forget about it, Jesus! I'll tell you what, they would have lifted her shirt up and showed her broad to the public. That's what would have happened. Bad thing, see?
Show everybody her girdle.
We'd have told everybody things about her, ruin her reputation. That would have showed her. Said you should have seen her back when she was younger.
Right.
Oh, and the boys came home from the service, I tell you.
That was the original revenge porn. Just saying she did shit.
Yeah, she sucked my dick. My boyfriend's back, and that song is
the original revenge porn.
Well, kind of. That song, I believe that song is, okay, I fucked this guy.
Right.
Probably not cool.
Right.
My boyfriend's going to be super pissed. So he said I fucked him, but I didn't. He's spreading rumors about me. He's going to kick your fucking ass for spreading rumors about me. I think this guy's going to get home. He's going, where is this son of a bitch? She was fucking him. I'm sure of it. And that's fine.
Right.
But admit it. Don't get this guy's ass kicked because
beat up.
Yeah.
Get his tires
Fuck
slit
outta
and
here.
his face punched.
That's what it was.
Because you gave him some?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That was in the 1960s. She couldn't admit in the song that, I sucked a dick and it was fine.
Right.
But, dude got mad at me for it. So
happens when you leave town.
Yeah. All those songs were either I want to get laid or that girl's a whore. That's every song. Every song. Look at Dion's whole catalog. Run Around Sue. She's a whore.
Right.
Let me warn you about this skank in case you ever come across her. That's what the fucking song is. Or
any song that's about a girl was about some girl that somebody got to fuck and then she wanted to fuck everybody else.
Yeah. Or that they want to fuck real bad.
And she wants to fuck somebody else.
And she wants to obviously fuck somebody else. But not now because I can dance. Yeah, now she'll fuck me.
I got a guitar.
That's the other third of the songs from the 50s and 60s.
I got a guitar and I get to fuck everybody else.
Now, here's the way this works. The jury here back then, they can either give no recommendation in sentencing, just be guilty or not guilty, or they can
somebody else.
They can give a recommendation of life imprisonment, or they can have no recommendation, which would leave him open for the judge sentencing him to the gas chamber.
Got it.
So if they want to kill somebody, that's no recommendation. If they don't, they give a recommendation of life imprisonment. And that way, if they give a recommendation of life, then the judge is not allowed to sentence him to the gas chamber.
Okay.
That's the way the law was. So Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1949, he is sentenced, and they dismiss a robbery charge against them because he's convicted of that. The judge here, oh boy, let's see here. He gives him, you, sir, may fuck off, life sentence times 2.
Oh boy.
Because it's for the robbery and the murder, the robbery while the murder happened.
Yeah, the aggravator.
The aggravator. And 5 years to life also on one, to run concurrently with another sentence of 5 years to life, which he receives from the robbery conviction.
Yeah.
So 2 life sentences basically is what he ends up with.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Is he going to Alcatraz?
We'll talk about that. He's going to San Quentin first.
Oh,
Alcatraz wants him bad.
Really?
For their team.
Hilarious.
They want him for their baseball team. Prisons are recruiting him.
Oh my God.
That's how fucking good he is when he goes to prison. So he doesn't know what the fuck to do here. He's obviously shit out of luck. Fucked.
Yeah.
Sitting there.
Yeah.
Fuck. You got to be.
Never gonna.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking him out. He goes out to go to the jail.
Right.
They're taking him from the courthouse, and it's that last breath of fresh air, and he's like, "Oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
This sucks." And he's upset, and then he hears some dogs barking.
Yeah.
He's like, "What's that? I love dogs." He turns around. It's Bobby Colorado, animal trainer from Fredericksburg, Texas, and he says, "How is you come to arrive here?
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with you? You're throwing a fucking ball all over the place. Look at me.
Ball player.
I'm not an athlete.
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now. I'm good with these dogs. You know, I got some business acumen, if you know what I'm talking about, but I don't use that no more. But the problem is, what I could never do is throw a fucking ball. Right. You know what I would do to throw a fucking ball like you throw it? What are you doing?
I could have used you.
Oh, you're knocking guys. I could have either throw a ball or back in another life, we might have been friends. You know what I'm talking about? I might have been able to use you. But for now, you're fucking up. You need to get yourself a nice fucking dog. Stay home at night. You pet its fucking head. It feels good. You're like a velvet on top. It's beautiful. You pet the dog. You don't go out and fucking kill
Throw the
doctors.
ball for the dog.
Get the fuck out of here. Get in the backyard. You throw it all the way across. They bring it back. It's the greatest fucking feeling ever. They never hit a home run off you. You're going to love it. Poof. In a cloud of dog shit.
Right.
And marinara sauce, he's gone. And Blackie's very confused here. So, apparently leaving the place, the Nell, somebody said Merry Christmas to her, his wife, at leaving court, and she said, gosh, is that the thing to say at the time like this?
Yeah.
And then she said, well, in spite of things like this, we have to go on living, you know. So that was that.
That's a woman that was fed up.
She was fed up anyway. Well, I'm done.
Yeah.
Now, Gardner, they talked to him, and he just says, quote, I only hope my wife will wait for me.
I got news for you, bud.
She doesn't wait for him,
No.
and neither does Nell, because Nell ends up remarrying pretty quickly as well. They get a divorce in jail, and that's that. So he ends up in prison. In prison, he goes to San Quentin, where he plays baseball.
Yeah.
And prison teams and prison athletics were a big deal back then. We're going to do a bonus episode one of these days on
just about
prison teams and prison sports and shit like that. That'll be fun. It'll be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that next bonus episode.
I want to know what all of them did.
So do I. So San Quentin, October 17th, 1951, he throws a no-hitter at San Quentin.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
these are dudes they're career criminals.
Yeah, they're not ball players here. I mean, they still played ball, but not at a fucking level like these.
You don't have Joe DiMaggio serving a life sentence.
Yeah, he apparently wrote the Browns and said, quote, would you please send me my unconditional release, as it looks like I shall be away from baseball for some time. And the Browns did.
They didn't have to say please.
Please.
We were already in the middle of it.
They placed him on the voluntarily retired list, and that was that. He does amazingly in prison, which is great. They said that he's a far better pitcher in prison than he was in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And not just he's doing better, like he has more control and shit like that.
Really?
Yeah, he's older.
Okay.
It takes people a few years to get control of a super crazy fastball. Quote, he's picked up a good change of pace, a good change up, and he isn't half as wild as he used to be. So he's just got more time to work it, and he does not out drinking every night. He's actually working on it, coming up the next day, working on it more.
Right.
Rather than getting shit-faced and waking up and stumbling to the park. He also pitches for Repressa and Tehachapi prisons. I don't know. I've never heard of those before. They might not be around anymore.
Closed, yeah.
In October of 55, pitching for Repressa, his stats at that point in the middle of the season for them was 3-0 with a 1.03 ERA, 40 strikeouts, 8 walks. Leads the league in everything and has a 400 batting average.
That's great.
He's just wrecking shit. That year in 55, he was 11-0 with a .75 ERA, 232 strikeouts, and 26 walks.
He would have so many millions of dollars today.
Holy shit, in 143 innings. So he's averaging almost 2 strikeouts an inning and averaging basically 10 strikeouts to every walk, which is obscene and unheard of.
That's awesome.
That's fucking nuts. He's also getting in a shitload of trouble because he's a moron. He starts making... he starts drinking homebrew that he made. He's gambling.
Yeah.
He's in jail, too. He hustles like crazy. He hustles. He's looking for something. He gets transferred out of his office clerk job. And he says, quote, I worked in the ice house and next door was the butcher shop. We kept food for the officers and the mess, and I was stealing meat from the butcher shop and cutting it up. I had made a knife to cut my meat with. It was never inside the grounds. It was hidden way up in the louvers. You had to climb up on a compressor to get it. Somebody snitched me off. So he gets in trouble for having a knife. And all the other people they talked to were like, he's full of shit. That was he used to hustle people all the time and they'd want to fuck him up. So he needed to arm himself to keep people from stabbing him. That's how it worked. He wasn't cutting his meat. I'm sure that was a secondary thing, but it's also to keep from getting stabbed, getting ventilated by somebody. So, 1956, he had a 1.08 earned run average, hit over 400. 1957, he leads the prison league in RBI and ERA. So doing pretty well. 1959, he sends a letter to Baseball Digest, and it's to a public. I want to be in baseball again.
Oh boy!
And he says, it's titled, I served my time, now I want to pitch again.
Oh, no, you haven't.
Yeah. More than because he's trying to get parole every year, too, because he's up for parole after like 10 years or 9 years. So he says, quote, to begin with, I was convicted of first-degree murder in December 1949 in Los Angeles and sentenced to life in prison. I've now served 8 years, 9 months, and 3 weeks, and will be eligible for parole in January 1959. I've been a member of special counseling groups for the past 18 months, and I honestly feel like I have a fine insight into my problem. Fine insight. Baseball-wise, I played for 8 seasons in the institution, San Quentin, Folsom, and now Tehachapi. I have been named the most valuable player in 6 different leagues and have been beaten independent armed forces teams made up from many ball players from the professional ranks. I am now 32 years of age as of last August, and I know I've lost something off my fastball, but I feel like I'm a much better pitcher now than I was in the majors in 1948. 2 years ago at Folsom, I pitched a no-hitter against a team managed by Woody Held, striking him out 3 times. My overall pitching record for the last 8 seasons is 131 wins, 35 losses, 240 walks, 1,565 strikeouts, and a 180 earned run average. Pretty goddamn good.
Yeah, but he's pitching against cons.
Yeah, he said, during the 8 seasons, I played almost a third of the games at shortstop and have led 3 different leagues in hitting. So when the days he wasn't pitching, he was playing shortstop. Like he's doing like Babe Ruth used to play right field when he wasn't pitching for the Red Sox before he went to the Yankees.
Unbelievable.
It's fucking wild. He said, I was refused reinstatement into pro ball in 1957 by Commissioner Ford Frick on the grounds that he would allow no man on parole to play organized ball. However, I kept writing him, and after his decision on the Ed Bushi case, he told me that if I had legitimate offers from professional clubs, he would take my re-entry under further consideration. I'm sure now he will rule in my favor. I was declared a free agent in June 1955. In 1957 and 1958, at the time of my appearance before the parole board, the Sacramento club would have taken me once. I will have no trouble hooking up with a team when the time comes to get my parole. I want to thank all my friends on the outside who never gave up their faith or lost confidence in me. So his parole is denied again in 1958. But a psychiatric evaluation on December 18th, 1958 made a strong case for his release. And the report here stated examination revealed a rather gaunt, friendly man with a dynamic type of personality. And he is let out on January 6th, 1960. So he didn't even
11 years.
And didn't even do 11 years.
For first-degree murder.
For first-degree murder, like in the commission of a robbery.
Holy shit.
That is fucking wild.
Well done, California.
He said when he left, the only freeway in L.A. was Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back, there was the Harbor and the Hollywood, and they're building others.
Right.
He said his dad told him to come over and go to dinner, and he said it took him, he couldn't find it because he didn't know the new roads.
Yeah.
He said, here's what you do. You take Harbor to the Hollywood. When you get down to the interchange, be careful because you get over to the Hollywood side. Jesus Christ, I drove around like crazy. I should have parked and walked. I should have called the cops and asked them to drive me over there, but I finally saw his off-ramp. So, he says that he spent his first week out catching up with his family. His wife remarried and her new husband formally adopted his son because he was in prison. Jesus Christ. But he said they were still in touch and he would take his son places and do things and shit like that. He said that I was happy for it, Blackie says. He was a fine man and I didn't want to cause any problems. Okay. He's like, I don't want to deal with that anyway. Yeah. I don't have to pay for him, right?
Right.
Okay, fuck it.
Is your problem?
Great. Deal. 1960s, plays with the Sacramento Stars in Sacramento, obviously. Plays up there a little bit. He misses his parole officer meeting, shows up a day late to parole, which isn't okay. His new parole officer sent a teletype saying he violated his parole. They found him getting into his car in front of his girlfriend's house. He said he was planning on driving back to Sacramento to see his parole officer, but he hadn't asked permission to visit LA because he'd been afraid they'd refuse him to go. So he ended up in LA County Jail for that. Back in there, parolees need permission to leave where they are, the area. While he sat in jail here, this is all happening. They spoke with baseball people, and they all said that if Blackie didn't keep pitching, it would destroy his chances for a pro comeback. So the LA parole officer was also concerned about all this sort of thing. So the only thing he was worried about, though, is that he'd been hanging out with several ex-convict and old gangster buddies. They were like, if we let you out, you're not going to do that, right? And they said, by the way, you're hanging out with your girlfriend, Irene, is a married woman, too. So you're doing all sorts of shit that's not okay. Her husband was away in the military.
Oh, my God.
So, after 3 weeks in the LA County lockup, they brought him back to Sacramento. He failed to get any of the jobs his parole officer had told him that he was going to start. He didn't get any of them. He ended up working as a cleanup man and a janitor at a bar, which also had a semi-pro baseball team. So that was that. So he ended up playing there. He kept moving around and failing to get permission to move from his parole officer. Finally, he was tracked down while he was shacking up with his current girlfriend, a woman named Nancy Black, who had a 17-year-old daughter also living with them there.
Yeah.
It's a fucking mess. He said, I got out of prison. The thing you're supposed to get out of it, that you're not going back. But I retained my temper for years. I had a hair trigger temper. I didn't get into any legal trouble up there, but there were those kinds of things where you walk into a beer joint and you have a beer. The guy comes in, sits next to you and has a beer and sets down his can a little too loud for you or something. So whack.
What?
Sets down
literally
his can
never happened
a little
to
too
me.
loud for you, so you hit him. Or you look down the bar and a couple guys are talking and one of them happens to look at you, so you go down there and say, you have something you want to say to me? He's the guy in the fucking bar that does this. This is that guy. This is that guy. April 15th, 1961, he signs with the Hawaii Islanders.
What?
The Hawaii Islanders.
So he's going to Hawaii.
Going to Hawaii. He sends a letter to Ford Frick to try to get reinstated. So they are expected to reinstate him because other people have been reinstated. And it's kind of right along the line here. He has an all right time in 1961 here. He pitches 6 games, 1-2, 21 innings pitched, 5.14 ERA. Not exactly prison, but he's also 35 years old.
Right.
Which he's losing it a little. He's released on May 13th, 1961 by the Islanders. March 1962, he signs again with the Islanders.
Okay.
He's working on a knuckleball now, which means his arm is fucked up. That's what pitchers do when your arm's fucked up.
You need some gadgets.
Pitchers who can throw 95 don't bother with that. April 12th, 1961, he pitches a complete game. 6-hitter versus the Vancouver Mounties. Now, he ends up being released eventually here. So anyway, He ends up, we'll just say, with a 9mm Luger at some point in the mid-'60s. Yeah. Okay? He says, quote, I just drove around and sat in the car at night in parks and drank. I thought, bullshit, I ain't going anywhere, do myself in. That's what he said. I'll fuck myself up. Yeah. So, at 5 p.m. on December 30th, Blackie showed up at his ex-girlfriend Jean's job as she was getting off of work.
The married girl.
A different girl.
Okay.
Shit-faced drunk with a Luger.
Yeah.
He told her that he wanted to talk, and they got into the car. As she was driving them to her house, he pulled out his gun and said that he was planning to kill himself. Now, Jean drove around in circles for about a half hour, then pulled into the parking lot at Kim's Liquor Store in Monterey Park. They sat in the car and talked for an hour, but they weren't really getting anywhere. Finally, basically, he didn't know what to do anymore, so he pointed the gun at her and told her to drive. Now he switched it from I'm going to kill myself to I'm going to fucking kill you, drive. So after a while, he had her pull over and let him out at a bar, and she drove away. So, he said, so I went to this beer joint and I hung out in. I had the gun in my belt and the sweater on. When I walked in the door and unbuttoned the sweater, here's this big gun. I ordered a beer and 3 people headed for the phone. I just drank my beer and police came and threw the net over me. They showed up at about 8 p.m. and arrested him for kidnapping, suspicion of robbery, and possession of firearm by a convicted felon.
Right.
Big time parole violation.
Of course.
Yeah, obviously he could have been sent back to prison to complete his life sentence because of that parole violation. But he had an understanding parole officer who listened to his story and convinced the district attorney to file lesser charges on him.
He was drunk, Your Honor.
He was really drunk. Like, really drunk. Like, you've been drunk, right? But, like, really drunk. That's what he was. So, I mean, we've all been there. On February 10th, 1971, he pleaded guilty to one charge of possessing a firearm and kidnapping, they dropped, and was sentenced to 4 months in jail.
What?
Wow. This is crazy. So then he ends up also getting his parole revoked at that point, though, and he ends up in some program at Chino. So, the person said it was to interrupt his obvious pattern of self-destruction. Confinement would afford Schwamb, as well as the parole agent, time to formulate an adequate release program and time for him to resolve some of his interpersonal problems.
Oh my God.
I don't think they're getting resolved. So he's back in prison.
Yeah.
He almost got he's a menace. But it's almost like it's just this self-destructive disaster at this point where he just has to fuck up.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's like, I've been good for a while. I should fuck up. You
he's also, I mean, he's destructive to a lot of different people.
To people, to
not just
things,
himself anymore.
I know. I don't even know who to feel bad for anymore, but I know who I do feel bad for. Yeah. These people, Richard Schwamb, because he goes by Richie always, so we'll go with Richards, who's a corporate retirement director and a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley in the greater New York City area. Richard Schwamb, owner, RLM Consultants and Computer Software Company in Atlanta, IT engineer at Air Technology Services in greater Milwaukee, and then finally it's the same one. Oh no, this is a different one. Yeah. Retirement plan advisor at Merrill Lynch. 2 Richard Schwambs doing the same job for different companies.
I swear we've had somebody from Morgan Stanley before, too.
I think we have.
Lots of people that have the same name as criminals.
So he gets out of prison on October 6, 1971. Mm-hmm. His mother picks him up. She gets him a small apartment in Inglewood.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's where he wanted to go because it was where he used to be. Yeah. So he thought that was where he would be. But by then, it's not the same neighborhood it was. Not. Now it's in fucking Ice Cube songs.
Right.
So it's a problem. His landlady told him about an opening in a freight forwarding company that worked out of a warehouse at the airport.
He's from baseball to a warehouse job.
I mean, it's better than
airport.
Better than prison.
I don't know.
Christ. He said, maybe. He said, I got all cleaned up, put on a suit, and went down there. I was dressed better than the general manager. I didn't know what kind of job it was. I thought it was sales or something, but I was driving, so I said, where can I start? When can I start? It was about noon. I started an hour later. And I guess he got work as a dispatcher with a cement company, but that didn't last very long, and all sorts of shit. So at one point he's with this woman, right? Kind of for the last 20 years of his life, he's with this woman. He's got she's got a teenage daughter in the house and all this shit. Her name is B, and I guess he and B went out on a boat with some friends, and he slipped on the deck and fucked up a disc in his back.
Oh, no.
So he had to have surgery, and apparently he'd just drink and read until he was too drunk to read. And then he'd just kind of
That's a pretty great
pass
life,
out.
though.
Drink and read, and, well, can't see anymore.
Yeah.
Guess I'll pass out
Put
now.
down this book.
Yeah, he could still get around a little bit to do, be sociable and shit like that, but he couldn't do what he liked to do. And his daughter said, quote, or his stepdaughter said, it would totally broke his spirit when he injured his back. His disability took away his manhood. He played Mr. Mom while my mom worked. She said he was good at being a homemaker and shit like that. He was a good cook and taught her how to cook. But she said also he had a terrible debilitating cough from smoking, but he didn't even try to stop. And drinking was constant, from the first Budweiser of the morning to the last 7-Up and whiskey at the end of the night. Awesome. He was always happiest when he was drinking. When he was drinking, he was a generous, fun, and kind man. When he was sober, he was a volatile and angry man, and you had to walk on eggshells around him. Yeah.
Like an
alcoholic. That's what alcoholics are. Someone with an addiction.
Right.
That's what they do.
He's happy when he's got what he wants and needs.
Yeah. Wow.
He's furious and an asshole when he doesn't.
So this book, the guy going to meet him and talk to him was in 1985.
Yeah.
And he said he kind of tracked him down he was the only Ralph, Schwamb that had a driver's license in the state of California.
Right.
So he sent him a letter, and the guy, sent him a letter back saying, I am that guy. Here's my address. Come on by if you want, basically.
Yeah, we know.
He did say, though, he would not talk to this guy unless he showed up with a carton of unfiltered Pall Malls.
Ugh.
But he's like 65 years old. A carton of unfiltered Pall Malls and at least a quart of Kessler.
Ew, gross. A quart.
A quart.
Yep.
And unfiltered Pall Malls.
That's the most disgusting measurement of booze.
A quart. Bring me a quart. It does.
That's an alcoholic's measurement.
Half gallon sounds bad too. Yeah, half gallon. Half gallon sounds like a party measurement. That's for everyone, right? Obviously, a quart is personal.
Handle sounds like a guy that's about to have some fun. A quart is disgusting.
A quart is that's a lot.
That'll get me through tonight.
That seems like you're measuring it out in a cup.
Ugh.
And he said he threw in a case of beer for good measure, just to be nice about it.
Yeah.
The way the guy described it was, quote, he lived with a woman and her daughter in a dull green metal slab-sided house that looked like a double-wide trailer that had been permanently affixed to a dry bush and dirt lot.
Oh, my.
That's his life. One small tree fought a losing battle to survive by the mailbox.
This guy's a great writer.
It's funny. A big-engined mid-60 Dodge in so-so shape crouched out front, drying laundry scooped up, blowing dirt on the side. So he said, quote, a whip-thin tall man, whittled and darkened by the sun, came onto the front step to watch me get out of my car. Quote, you bring the Kessler and the smokes?
You got that booze.
So you got the booze, and he did. And he said that basically he didn't have to prod much. Guy just told him everything, told him the story of his life.
Yeah.
He was super proud of it. He said that he had told him over the course of this 2 different versions of what happened murdering the doctor.
Oh, boy.
Right? So he said, I pestered him into telling the story again because the first 2 were contradictory. Mm-hmm. Obviously, maybe the third time's a charm. And he said, it definitely wasn't. He said basically he got pissed off. He broke down crying. And he was like, whoa. So he said he didn't know what to do. He let him collect himself for a couple of minutes, and they sat there on their chairs, and then he looked up at him super angrily, Blackie did, and said, quote, that's it, get the hell out of here before I fuck you up. And the guy said, I grabbed my shit and ran to the car because he was ready to fucking start swinging on me.
Yeah.
So he goes, I took off.
He talked him into almost telling him what really happened.
Fuck it, I'm done with you. And then he said, get the fuck away from me. I don't know if he was sober for a minute or what.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was it. He said, I never saw him again. Blackie showed up at an Astros game. I want to say it was an Astros-Dodgers game or something, but he showed up at an Astros game in 1985, and people knew who he was, old-timers knew who he was, and he was there to say that he was praying for Dickie Thon every day because Dickie Thon, their shortstop, had got hit in the head with a pitch last year.
Okay.
And he just wanted him to make a full recovery.
That's why I'm here.
Everybody said he was kind of weird, and you couldn't understand him when he talked because he was so fucking gravelly sounding. Finally, December 15th, 1989, he goes into a hospital in Lancaster, California. He had pneumonia, but then the next day he was told that he was in the end stages of lung cancer. He'd been diagnosed 6 months before, but didn't tell anybody. Kept it to himself. And in the hospital, he said he doesn't want a funeral or a grave. He just wanted to be cremated and wanted his ashes spread on a pitching mound.
Throw me in the trash.
That's all he wanted. Just throw me in the trash. He wanted to be on a pitcher's mound. December 21st, 1989, he dies. He's cremated. Who knows where he's spread. Can't get enough Blackie?
Unbelievable.
Well, you can get a Blackie Schwamb signed 3x5 index card.
What?
There's a few of them on there all around for auction. They're like $400 though. Like this guy's, there's very little.
They love his shit, huh?
There's very little of him out there.
I kind of want that.
I kind of do too. I kind of want something of his because it's pretty cool.
That's
and he's
what a story.
So fucking rare that he
That's
just
a grimy
disappeared.
ass story.
And then he disappeared for the last 20 years of his life. Like, that was that. And I couldn't find any more arrests or anything. I don't know if he chilled out and started being more of a homebody, but what in the fuck, man? It is goddamn crazy. But that, everybody, is Blackie Schwamb. And one hell of a fucked up story. I gotta be honest with you. That is crazy shit.
The guy's his own menace.
He's his own menace.
He's his own kryptonite.
I didn't know he existed, really. Yeah. And then I looked the story up, and the further you get into it, I'm like, who is this monster? This guy's crazy. And this old-timey story, it's so great, man.
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
What's your deal, Blackie?
Yeah.
So if you like that story, give us 5 stars. That's what you can do. That purple icon, Apple Podcast, that helps us out a lot. Give us 5 stars. It helps drive us up the charts, and we don't even know why. But it's good for business. Get on shutupandgivememurder.com for everything crime and sports and small town murder related. And listen to Small Town Murder if you haven't yet or just lapsed on it, because it's crazy over there. You think this is a crazy story. Listen to some of the shit we've done recently. A goddamn dog found 2 different legs.
Right.
Put it that way.
Same dog.
2
different legs.
Police dog searched for days, and then somebody's German Shepherd just comes home with legs. Hi. That's how it happened recently. Check that out. It's called Some Dogs Find All the Legs. It's not hard to find. Do all of that. Also, if you want to be a producer of this show, it's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
It's very easy, and you're going to get stuff for it. You're going to get Jimmy mispronouncing your name.
You bet.
You're also going to get access to all the bonus material, and we have so much. We do every other week. We release one for each show, so you're going to get at least 4 shows a month on that. And lately, it's been crazy. We did personal ads and sales last week for crime and sports, and we did the white trash defense that someone tried to purport for murder.
Yeah.
For murdering several people. He tried to say, no, you don't understand. I'm white.
Get it.
I'm white trash.
That's
that means
why.
it's okay. We go deep into that defense and the origins of it, and it's fucking insane. You can get all that and more, full catalog and access to last year's and everything else for anybody over the $5 level. Patreon.com/crime and sports. Or if you want to just be a nice person and have good karma, you can go over to PayPal and use our email address, crimeandsports@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of us, that's the email's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
You can also head over to @crimeandsports on Twitter and Facebook, or we are at Small Town Murder on Instagram. You can do all of that and support the show and tell your friends, and it really does help a lot. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
What I also need to know, though, Jimmy, tell me something. You need to tell me the names of the greatest people in the world who would never, ever, ever take me out to a lover's lane and beat me to death till I choke on my own blood.
Well, I'll do my best.
Thank you. Hit me with them, Jimmy.
This week's executive producers are Beth Whittlesey. I think she donated both ways for me to misspell her name.
Misspell it twice.
Whittlesey. Thank you so much, Beth. You're amazing. Jennifer Visconti, Joanne Ahern, who also wrote us a letter a couple weeks ago and thanked us for talking about MS. Because we were sensitive to it, which I don't know how
we not
couldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because we have experience
fucked
with it.
up shit. Yeah. Hang in there,
fuck
Joanne.
MS,
You're amazing.
man. Yeah. Quit being a bitch.
Matthew Molina. Happy birthday, Claire Molina. 29 for life is what I'm told.
Sweet.
It's not
so 46.
Yeah, right. It's a
happy birthday.
It's a Rat's later song when they retired. Linda Campbell, Michelle Gilbert, Ian Hurley, Jordan Bennett, of course, thank you. Jeff Watson, Buffy Sykes, Jordan Covington, Shelley Ann Barnard, I don't know. Carolyn Fia, Holly Hunslow, Chris Bartolini, Tamara Carpenter, an unemployed history major also, and Amber Denicky, I think. Thank you so much,
thank
you guys. You're fucking incredible.
Absolutely.
Other producers this week are Holly Heyman, Steve Schnell, Eric Thompson, Brielle with no last name, Ryan McGowan, Thomas Smith, Jade Armstrong, Brendan Abels, Leslie Ward, Ashley Vio, Carl Doyle, Terry Staudinger.
One of our old buddies on there.
Yeah,
Good
tons
peoples.
of them. Spencer Ludman, Melissa Turner, Winter Hubbock, Brad Peters, Elizabeth Arnold, Julia Duncan, Jaden Patterman, Russ T. Medina. Got it. That's why, because I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Kristen Ems, Brad Peters, I think I said that. Molly Duncan, Mary Wood, Christer, Craig Cole, Jude Doyle, Nikki Batchelor, Jade would know last name, Ryan would know last name, Keith Marler, I think, Marrier.
Yeah.
Sarah Vresk, John DeLong, Michelle with no last name, Morgan Baker, Michael Molito, Jenny Bradford, Gabrielle Rebus, Liz Vasquez, Samantha Hedinger, Taylor Ferris, Stephanie with no last name, Heather Cox, Peyton Meadows, Melody Agofa, Teo. Oh, it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Melody. LaDonna Little Elk. I hope she's native and that's a cool fucking name. Carrie with no last name, Ed Barrier, Stephen Clay Camp, Susan Olgis. Happy birthday, Jessica Stope. She's down in Florida, right? She moved down there and married somebody? Or she moved to Pittsburgh? I think he moved.
Sounds
the
familiar.
guy from PA moved there,
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't remember.
I think that's true. Stephen Claycamp, I said that. Teddy Martin, Amy Fry, Jennifer Sorensen, Sherry Nisi, James Martyr, Michael Kelso, thanks buddy, appreciate you, Somali 53, Jenny Hand, Christoph Johan, I think that's right, Joan, Elizabeth Cieslick, happy birthday, hey. Charlene Esteve, or Steve, I'm not sure, Andrew Gillen, Chris Buchek, Samilja, probably not. Brandon Allen, Tina Geschwender. There's not enough vowels in that one.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Jerry Fairchild, Jimmy's Viagra dealer, obviously. Maddie Johnson, Stephanie Griffiths, Rick Daniels, Brendan Keating, Steve Randell, Janice Hill, Chris Hunter, Emma Morris, Selena Goldworth, Angela Cornman, it's probably Cornman, and Mandy Knight, Todd Alton, Mason Dubois, Jagged Little Quill, Destiny with no last name, Renee with no last name, Selena Schmidtka, Jude Kendall, Derek Donato, yep, Lauren Gray, Brad Kobler, Jordan Martin, Katarzyna Niedzolka, I think, Alexander Sudkamp, Chris Henson, Jacqueline Pierney, oh fuck, Grant Bodmer, god damn it, Corey Cabone, happy birthday, Kim Duggar Baker, and also Tiffany Gonzalez. Thank you guys so much. Courtney Pask, Kevin Wright, we're running through it. Logan Hartley, what is this? Sagan Wet? No, that's not right either. Hannah Adams, Jake, what is this? Jake Young, I don't know how to pronounce that, but her boyfriend said that could net him a really amazing blowjob.
Oh, wow. Good luck. Good luck to you, sir.
Go get Jake Young. I don't know. That's as best as I got. Bill Jacobson, Derek Bentley, JJ Kaiser, Alexandra Lamb, Connor Niven, Robert McEwen, and Antoinette Edes, Shelley Porterfield, T. Wicks, Haas her. Will Hunt, Christoph, what is that? What did I do? Chris Dix, Chris D. L. Robinson, I think. Krista, maybe. I don't know. Paige, Shag, what have I done? Shagaman Jones. Kelly, what is this? Kelly Brenneman, Chanda Harbor, Cody Ennis, Damian Cabrera, Sarah Overstein Calvert, god damn it, Diane, what did I do? Antonopoulos, Jennifer Sewell Shifo, Ali Arabsky, Cameron Nugent, Jason Zachary, Morgan Brantley, Tyrone Bliss, Tiffany Wonder, Joel Brenneman, Melissa Sanborn, Douglas Conradi, Catherine Garger, Corey Campers, Lisa C., Brianna Ryan, Essence Smith Maxwell, I think. Nope, probably not. Jacqueline Jones, Demelza Brown, Jenny Bukowski, Rebecca Closters, Jamie with no last name, Haley with no last name, Elizabeth Stanton Johansson, nope, that's Johnson, Cheryl Malone, Jake, Pryanovich, Crosby with no last name, Jamie with no last name, Joe Hogan, Brian, what is this? Brian Torres, Bogdan, Gilmut Tadov,
Wow, you're getting a lot of multi-syllabic names here. There's a lot of things happening.
Tia Moretti, Liz Smith, Michelle Barnes, Sabina with no last name, Cloud9, check left hook, check left hook. Tristan Armbrister, Kira Stewart, Jamie Floyd, Abby Crago, Chris Moore, Joshua Smith, Perpetual Coin Toss, Amanda Spice, Shelley Frells, I think, Adriana Moraga, James Magnuson, Sarah Davidson, Jeffrey Linden, Neil Annis. I say
Neil and his anus. Thank you for your cash.
Choco Bear Gaming. I think he's a comedian in New York. I think that's the right person.
Well,
Christopher Satizabal, shit, Colby Schaefer, Jason Christensen. Thanks, Jason. Hope you and the wife are doing well. And the kids, David Becca Breedy, Mary Brune, Cam Bob, Chris Johnson, Liz S., Lee Canali, Dina Riendu. Nope. Alexander McCraig, Darth Cheeto, Jessica Carol. Courtney Smith, Micah Shy, Kristen with no last name, Connard 1717, Ashley McAuliffe. I hope that's wasn't that the teacher's name that was on the shuttle? McAuliffe?
No.
Yeah. McAuliffe.
Was it?
Right?
I don't remember.
Fuck.
Something.
I think it's McAuliffe.
Something.
I think it's McAuliffe. Christine Zavaldi, Alabama Sassafras, Kayleen Kirsch, Jekyll Logan, Jekyll Jarrell, Patience Carpe, Megan Williams, Sydney Vittori.
Christina McAuliffe.
Krista McAuliffe. That's
Sharon
it.
Krista McAuliffe.
There you go. That's Karen Lelm, Rachel Thompson, Yvonne Abrahantes, Patience. I said that. God damn it, Patience Wisman. Holly Levinson, that's another one. Katie Rages.
You said that.
I know.
You said that. So you looked over at me and went, "That's another one." like we had three names and you were naming. You think that's enough? How about that's one more?
Holly Levinson, take that. Carolina Vavatskova.
Very arrogant that was toward me. Like, what do you think of that, asshole?
Abby last name. Thank you, Abby. Adam Dugdale, T.J. Butner, Kate Stewart. Kara Kowalczyk, Sam Keehan, Pavlis Basaficius. His wife's going through some shit, and I really appreciated his email. Thank you, Pavlicis. I apologize for not being able to say your name, man.
Thank you, Pablo Licious.
Corey McKinnon, James Stein, Kathy and James. Steve Coons. Anthony Kirachuk, nope. Homer Nunez, Brandon Guffrin, nope. Michael Clark, Olivia Fort, or Fart. It's not Fart, is it? No, it's not. Cassidy Moore, Lauren Green.
Thank you, Ms. Fott. Ms. Fott.
Pamela Dennis, Neil with no last name, Katie Hayward Mullins, Maureen Montgomery, Nicole Gattoni, Jenny with no last name, Anita Dunn, Gagan Sats, Kunlapa, no, none of these are real. Gary Treasenberg, Joy Amelia, Jamie Hasty, Lucia Judge, Tim LaPlante, Clayton Crowley, Stephanie Gonzalez, Ivy with no last name, Joshua Gilb, Ben Mounts, Brittany Vile, her last name really is Vile, Lori Christian, Ben with no last name, what did I do here? Laura, nope, that's Eric, Shively, Mike Johnson, Jessica Schwind, Carrie Schmidt-Swan, Aaron Nesbitt, Sam Hartop, Deb Compton, Lee Hibbler, Tony, nope, yeah, that is Tony McDomick, Catherine Perry, Jacqueline Goff, Matthew Forehand, Lynn Clunder, Amy Dickens, Angela Rosenberg, Timothy McGuire, Joanne Penn, Kristen Bull, Ellie Babineau, Boobian, what? Rhino, Carla Wood, Laura Shantz, Kristen, nope, that's Christian Yeats, John McCown, Jill Fry, Christine Rushford, Melissa with no last name, Kenny Alawia, Paul Burns, Brian Poe, Deidre Solberg, Sherry Adams, and also then there's two last ones. Who are they? God damn it, what have I done here? They are Nicole Ellis and then Buffy Sykes. You guys are terrific. Thank you guys so much for everything you do.
Thank you, everybody, so much, honestly, for every damn thing you do for us. We just can't thank you enough.
Can't understate it, really.
No.
You guys having our backs as much as you do is bananas and completely unexpected and more than grateful. Thank you.
It's great because, yeah, I mean, we have more listeners now and stuff like that, and we're like, you know, we have like a business stuff going on, but we're not connected to anything. No. We're not like part of some big thing. We're not.
Still all you.
Our network just like helps sells ads. Like we don't have like then they're going to promote that. We have to do all that shit on our own. And you guys, it's mostly you guys. So thank you for doing everything like that for us. We really appreciate you. What if they wanted to do something for you, Jimmy? How could they?
Oh, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Wisman Sucks. And you?
I am at Jimmy P is funny, and you can find me and do all that shit and have fun with all that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, honestly, for everything you've done for us then, now, and always. 226 episodes worth. What? It's crazy. Once again, live from the Crime and Sports Studios. We will see you next week.
Bye.
If you like crime and sports, you can listen early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.
In the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this white Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles.
A big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud.
Sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became. It's a story of deceit.
At the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.